urge Democrats from the voting rolls and get out there, get active
down.
time.
But it's good to see you this morning, sweetie.
We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
Come on, you watch the news. Be prepared to pay more taxes. Then if you owe back taxes or haven't filed one in a few years, get ready. The IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, will be coming after you with the power to collect taxes by any means they want to. Hey, they can freeze your bank account, your passport, even padlock your business. Oh, good times. Look, if the IRS claims you owe them $5,000 or more in back taxes and they're coming after you, don't panic. Call my friends at Get a Tax Lawyer first. Their job is to negotiate for the IRS and save you money. They're experts at it. That's all they do. And you can trust them. In some cases, they have reduced a $50,000 tax bill to less than $1,000. If you owe the IRS $5,000 or more in back taxes, call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-673-1574. 800-673-1574. 800-673-1574. That's 800-673-1574.
The David Pakman Show.
This idea that you would love Trump but hate DeSantis, they're sort of two sides of the same coin. So a lot of this character assassination of one in favor of the other is quite contrived. The reality is that most people who like one of these clowns would like the other. That's the reality.
The David Pakman Show, weekday evenings at 10 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
A frog in boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in cool water and slowly heat it up. That frog will boil. As veterans, we tell ourselves the lie that we can handle anything. We let the water boil. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. Residents are running as Ukraine and Russia blame each other for the damage to a big dam in southern Ukraine that Moscow controls. The AP's Charles Ledesma.
Ukraine's accused Russian forces of blowing up a major dam and hydroelectric power station in a part of southern Ukraine that Russia controls, sending water gushing from the breached facility and threatening possible massive flooding and what officials call an ecological disaster. Ukrainian authorities have ordered hundreds of thousands of residents downriver to evacuate. Russian officials counter that the Kakhovka Dam was damaged by Ukrainian military strikes in the contested area. Ukrainian authorities have previously warned that the failure of the dam could unleash billions of gallons of water and flood Kherson.
Britain's Prince Harry took the witness stand this morning in a London courtroom to testify against a tabloid publisher he accuses of illegal snooping. He said he had experienced hostility from the press since he was born. There are still a lot of questions about that small plane that flew over Washington, D.C. on Sunday, then slammed into a mountain in Virginia, killing 4 people. The NTSB's Adam Gerhardt on where the investigation goes from here.
Okay.
Reverend Dr. Hatch is on.
Okay, Reverend Hatch. Pastor Hatch, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Okay, look, we're going to need you on your close to the mic for the show itself. And do you want Mr. Castaneda to call you back after you finish with the good news? You want him to call you back, or do you want to stay on?
DBJ
At 6:30. I mean,
He
for
can
the
call me back
6:30.
after the
Veterans
good news.
Mothers in Focus
I'll be ready at
Remember
7.
Does that help you, Mr. Castaneda?
Will do. I'll call him back at 6:30.
Okay, fantastic.
Of Normandy
Because,
to fight Nazi
I know
Germany.
you're busy
Pope
this
Francis
morning.
back at the Vatican after going to a hospital for tests 2 months after he was hospitalized with
Great.
bronchitis. This is AP News.
I told you Congressman Jackson will be on, Alderman
Insurance
Hall will be
giants
on.
State Farm and Allstate are stepping back from the California
the
marketplace.
Former president of Now,
wildfires and
national
construction
president
costs.
of Now will be on.
The risk of wildfire and
So it'll be a
construction costs in California have prompted
good
State
discussion.
Farm and Allstate to stop writing new policies. State Farm announced last week it will stop accepting applications for all business and personal lines of property and casualty insurance, citing inflation, a challenging reinsurance market, and rapidly growing catastrophe exposure. Meanwhile, Allstate has paused new homeowners, condo,
Okay, can you hear him?
policies in California. It says to protect existing customers.
I'm pulling up the Facebook now.
Oh,
1 second,
I'm sorry, I
please.
didn't tell you. You know, I just
paperwork on Monday
because I
declaring
forget
his
so often. I
campaign
just
for president in
I just came
2024,
on up to
setting up a
you know.
challenge to
Okay.
his former boss.
No, you're fine. I was just looking for your page. 1 second.
No, bless your heart.
On
Thank you.
Wednesday. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Delighted to be on this morning. Thank you so much. Looking
Now,
forward.
WCPT 820 weather update.
And the weatherology.
Sounds good, Miss Jackson.
Okay, fantastic.
Michael Carroll. For today, we'll see partial sunshine with areas of haze, along with a slight chance for some showers. High temperatures working up to 80. Then for tonight, mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 50s. For Wednesday, gradually clearing skies will ease back to a high of 76 degrees, and then ample amounts of sunshine on Thursday, mid-70s. Friday, we're back up to 82. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently 65 degrees.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill. ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FREE. ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am the camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 has forced nearly 1 in 5 U.S. households to delay medical care for serious illnesses. Screening for cancer and other diseases is also way down. But don't worry, it's not too late to get back on track with your health care. The Illinois State Medical Society is reminding the public that there is no substitute for a visit with your doctor. Medical offices have stepped up their precautions. They're safe and ready to give you the screenings, vaccines, and even telehealth visits that can keep you healthy. It all starts with a call to your doctor.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
COVID-19 has forced nearly 1 in 5 U.S. households to delay medical care for serious illnesses. Screening for cancer and other diseases is also way down. But don't worry, it's not too late to get back on track with your health care. The Illinois State Medical Society is reminding the public that there is no substitute for a visit with your doctor. Medical offices have stepped up their precautions. They're safe and ready to give you the screenings, vaccines, and even telehealth visits that can keep you healthy. It all starts with a call to your doctor.
The future depends on teachers. Every day, teachers are shaping our tomorrows, studying their students on journeys that will change the course.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you give me one more
Right
minute?
now,
Is it too late for
in a
that?
classroom somewhere in the
No, I'll put another 30 seconds in there. Okay.
I appreciate
hiring a
it. Thank
future
you so much.
scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate
Thank
change.
you so much.
And generating
And what do we
possibilities
My pleasure.
for
2
a
minutes?
student who will be the first in their family to graduate college.
Yes, we'll have another 2 minutes.
Teachers who meet
fantastic.
challenges
Thank
with
you.
creativity, who reinvent education for the future, who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code, and to enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Shape the future. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
Hi, I'm Avina.
I'm 7 years old and I'm blind. I love gymnastics, piano, public speaking, and riding on the trail bike with my dad. You can help me live the life I want.
Help Ravina and other blind people by making a tax-deductible donation of your used car, truck, or almost anything with wheels to the National Federation of the Blind. Your donation will help ensure a brighter future for blind children and adults. Just call 855-659-9314. That's 855-659-9314. Or visit carshelpingtheblind.org. That's carshelpingtheblind.org. We will arrange to have the donated vehicle picked up and provide you with a tax-deductible receipt. And if you know someone who is blind that can use our help, email nfb@nfb.org.
Blindness does not hold me back at all. Donate today.
We have 30 seconds.
Okay, great.
Ashton was a high-level athlete, and in an instant, your world flips. And your healthy 5-year-old competitive cheerleader has a brain tumor. And the physician was like, your best option is St. Jude. Receiving treatment that was life-saving for our child and knowing that that treatment would be of no cost to us was a huge weight lifted.
10 seconds.
Learn more at stjude.org.
Alexa,
stand by.
WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Get out your feedback, let's work that out. So glad to be with you. Alex Castaneda gets here before everybody in the morning. Him and Mr. Mercado. So I want to send them so much love today. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. There I go, adjusting that camera. Please meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and meet us on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I want you to say hello to Ashley, that's right, King from Memphis, and of course Velma Rimmer, how you doing? And Shirley Carter from beautiful Philadelphia, never forget that. Sean and Mark, hey, and Daryl, hey Lorraine, hey Paula, how you doing? Good morning, good morning. Kenneth, waiting for Carol from Beverly Hills to clock in, and Eric Burrows from Los Angeles, and Dave Dowling, how you doing? Sending you all so much love today. Jewel from New York City, loving you. Kenneth, everybody. Andre, my god brother here. And so many of you, that's right, Ashley, you pull that up. We love St. Jude down there in Memphis, Tennessee. What are we going to be talking about today? Congressman Jonathan Jackson will be on with us today to talk about the SNAP benefits, the hit that SNAP took in this debt ceiling deal, and why that is so important as we're watching hunger rise all across the country. And then we're going to be looking first at what's happening in Florida. As the COVID crisis has been removed as an official emergency, it's still here. It's still harming people. We still don't have 100% protection against it. What we can do is pay attention to Dr. Shanita Knighton with all of her instructions on infection prevention. What the importance of that particular announcement by the president and maneuver by the president is that the monies that had been put into COVID, the extra relief that you got, has been removed. So what does that mean? The Medicaid and Medicare that had been extended, that's over. And there is a 7-year-old boy in Florida who has leukemia. He's been battling it, and he's been successful in the battle because of the extension of Medicaid. But because Medicaid, his benefits are now being taken from him, the treatment that he needs to keep cancer at bay has been withdrawn. His life is on the line, and that's for a lot of people. 250,000 people in Florida alone have lost their Medicaid benefits because we have relaxed, because we have ended the emergency on COVID. So let's talk about that, everybody. Let's talk about that. There's some real issues as we're looking at these presidential campaigns, and we need to now know what we need to be asking of the people who are running on the local, county, state, and federal levels, not just the presidential. You need to know what everybody's standing for and really find out who's going into your state capital. Because as we can see, they determine who goes to Washington. They determine how your congressional district is formed, all of that. So call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-WCPT. I want to know what your thoughts are for the day. What is the big story of the day as we watch more and more Republicans? That's, of course, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, who's going to be with us throughout the show. Because, of course, he is on the ground looking at people who are hungry, looking at people who are struggling. And what is going to be the social fallout of all of that? Got a lot to talk about today on the Santita Jackson Show. So let's get into it, everybody. A major dam, according to CNN, in southern Ukraine was destroyed today, prompting mass evacuations and fear of large-scale devastation. Ukrainian intelligence officials claim the Russian forces blew up this dam, and another official in Kiev accused Russia of committing an act of ecocide, or in other words, destroying the environment deliberately. Of course, Russia is blaming, you guessed it, Ukraine. There we go. That's the nature of war, everybody. Prince Harry is testifying in a London court today, indeed the highest court in the land, as his years-long battle against Britain's tabloid media reaches its most dramatic stage so far. The Duke of Sussex is facing questions in London's High Court as part of his case against a major newspaper publisher. His appearance in court is extremely rare. Analysts say this is the first time a senior British royal will personally appear in the witness box since 2002. He alleges his phone was hacked and other illicit means were used to gather information about his life. It is important to remember that he does blame the media for his mother's death. An investigation is underway after two private planes carrying migrants recently arrived in California's capital of Sacramento. Investigators have determined the migrants were asylum seekers and were carrying documents purportedly from the Florida government. The state attorney general's office is working to confirm details about the migrants and who may be behind the flights. Call me at 773-763-9278. The pilot of the unresponsive private jet that crashed and killed 4 people, including a 2-year-old baby and their mother, in southwestern Virginia on Sunday, was seen slumped over in his seat when fighter jets attempted to draw his attention mid-flight, which meant that he was probably dead. Remember Payne Stewart, the golfer who was killed in a similar plane crash some years ago? They sent the fighter jets up because they were unresponsive. The pilot was unresponsive, and they saw that there was oxidation on the windows, and they had to take the plane down because it becomes an unguided missile. So we're going to see what happened here. But what was interesting about this was that when it did crash, it created a sonic boom, cracked the sound barrier. That's how powerful this plane was. And everyone wants to know what happened because, of course, that was around the capital. So Haiti, more than 13,000 people have been displaced in Haiti following heavy rains over the weekend that left at least 42 people dead, according to a statement from the country's civil protection agency. The intense rainfall caused several rivers throughout Haiti to overflow. We'll have to get our brothers and sisters from Haiti on here to find out what it is that we can do to extend relief to them. In Chicago, we will have a cool day, but a beautiful day. Some showers, high 68 degrees. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 84 degrees, and scattered thunderstorms. In the NHL, the Golden Knights are leading their series. They are close to getting that Stanley Cup, everybody. They won over the Panthers last night, 7-2. In the WNBA, the Fever will be facing off against the Sky, and in Major League Baseball, the Twins will be facing off against the Rays, the White Sox against the Yankees, and yesterday, well, the Cubs were shut out by the Padres, 5-0, and those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Marshall Hatch, Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch, Jr., New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, doing so many wonderful things here in Chicago. Oh, we need some good news. Some good news, and I'm so glad that you're going to be staying on with us today. Of course, we'll be talking about this later on, about the social fallout of hunger in America, the social fallout of people having their medical benefits that they were able to, that they needed so desperately when we had the COVID emergency. What is that going to mean? We see it in Florida, but it's spreading like a virus all over the country. But there is good news, and I'm so glad that you're here to give it to us today, Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch, Jr.
Good morning, Santita, and good morning to the radio audience. and good morning to every one of us who've been blessed to wake up this morning.
Yes.
And, of course, you know, it's music that is one of my passions. I walk to it, and it's my favorite pastime. On my playlist is an interesting song called Gray Hair. I don't know the artist's name, Truth, and one of the artists on the piece is well, I can't remember his name. Okay. But the name of the piece is Gray Hair, and it's about embracing life. You know, the Truth talks about, there's a line that says, today you are as old as you've ever been and as young as you'll ever be again. And it kind of challenges us to embrace today, the moment, to live wondrously, that each of us really is a wonder in the universe. You know, our lives are wondrous. We are, in fact, as we go out with the James Webb telescope and see as far in the universe as we've ever seen, we'll only find the same material that we're made of. There's no new material. It's all the same. In fact, we are wondrously made as the universe conscious of itself. And we call that life and intelligent life. We are the universe conscious of itself. This kind of thing preachers talk about. The Bible says we're fearfully and wonderfully made, meaning that we're made with such complexity that it requires a lifetime of constant reflection to find the meaning, because we have to deal with the correlations of life, you know. And so I want to just deal briefly here with your calling today. What are you called to do today? Being fearfully and wonderfully made with complexity, the universe conscious of itself, a human being. And so I can't help but think about, you know, how I found my calling. I listen to you, Santita, with great passion, talk about the people who are suffering, seeing the needs in people. And I can't help but remind all of us that one of the ways you find your calling and gives meaning to your life is, what do you complain about? Your complaint is your road to your calling, is an avenue to your calling. Or even more, your burden, what you see as deficient. The problem you see is the problem you have probably been called to help address, to help solve. And that's how all of us end up in these spaces that we're in. You know, we can call it social justice, we can call it ministry, we can call it doing what we believe we were meant to do. But it comes from what we see, our burden, what we see as deficient, is what leads us into our calling. And we find ourselves very passionate about it. And so the problem we see is the problem that we are probably called to solve. And so I want you to embrace that today. I want all of us to embrace that today, a sense of calling to address the things that we see.
Dr. Knighton is on.
To let that passion lead and drive us. And ultimately to know that we're called to address, but we may not finish the work, but we certainly will be fulfilled in the work. And so today our challenge again is that you have been fearfully and wonderfully made with great complexity. And so in your reflection, see the correlation that your calling comes from your burden, your complaint. The problem you see is the problem you're called to address. God bless you.
Amen. Amen. You put something on my heart today, Killing Me Softly with his song. Thank you very much. I felt you all flushed with fever. I think you're talking to me this morning, and I thank you for that. Blessings to you, Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch Jr., who will be on with us this morning as we talk about hunger, as we talk about Medicare and Medicaid and our health care, which brings me to this infection preventionist, this brilliant woman, a registered nurse, PhD, infection preventionist, college lecturer, all of that. As we are looking, we're going to pivot to a story just after this segment, Dr. Knighton, on people getting kicked off Medicaid because now the COVID emergency is officially over, which means the funds that were going to helping people, giving people, extending their SNAP benefits and, helping you to get adequate amounts of food, not extra food, but an adequate amount of food, which was not enough, but there it is, which was enabling you to get health care benefits. There's just a tie between all of this, but you can't do anything, Dr. Knighton, without your health. And part of your push, you said, is to normalize health. I guess the flip side of that is you think we've normalized sickness. Could you explain that and how we can get out of that?
Good morning, Santita. So absolutely, I do have a philosophy on being able to normalize what it's like to not get sick, opposed to us normalizing that everything out here is meant to treat us. Specifically, if I'm speaking about the United States, that you can depend on for your care if something happens to you, it's understanding how do I use that system when I need it, but not depend on it and hoping it'll be there when maybe it's not. It's also being aware of your body, what it is that you're experiencing, So that way you can communicate those things to providers so that way they can best assist you.
You know, we can reach you on Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA, HEYDRNINA. Because, you know, I think one of my takeaways from talking to you over the past couple of years is that we do need to shift the paradigm. We do need to normalize wellness. But there's a lot that we need to shift. We need need a health care system, a system that actually cares about our health, which is not just going to the doctor, coming back from the doctor. It's eliminating food deserts. It's, farm to my table food. I mean, you have farmers who who had to throw away their produce. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. Removal of pesticides, removal of disease, being aware of the antibiotics and antivirals that meat takes, and understanding how that's impacting us. There's a lot of things, Santita, to your point, that we should be paying attention to and how it's impacting us, especially as we know the environment is changing. We need to adapt to it because, as I'm going to keep saying, we cannot vaccinate our way out of these illnesses.
We cannot. You can't pop a pill, everybody. You can't get a vaccine. That's not going to change. That's not going to be the game changer. The game changer will be us. Because everybody needs to be an environmentalist. Everybody needs to clean up the environment. You should stop dumping toxins in black, brown, and poor white communities. Got a lot to think about. Let's talk about these 250,000 people who have been dumped from Medicaid in Florida. It's happening all over the country. There's a 7-year-old boy who was battling leukemia. He is battling leukemia. And because of the extension of Medicaid, he has been successful in his battle. But because of the withdrawal of Medicaid, in his case, he can't get the treatment that he needs to keep cancer at bay. That's happening to a lot of people. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. You know, everybody, if you want to hear Dr. Knighton, please go to WCPT820.com/Santita. You can hear what she had to say on the podcast. WCPT820.com/Santita. But we're going to have her back on because I think that I want to have a global view, Dr. Knighton, of our health. Because I keep hearing you say, as we talk, on StreamYard, on all of these other platforms, that we have to be the CEO of our health. One of the things that I appreciate about my physician, she doesn't call me Santita. She calls me Miss Jackson. And we're close now. So, I appreciated that. But she, as a protocol, she said, I can't have you call me Dr. Da-da-da, and then I just call you by your first name. That's disrespectful. And it also, in a very, very gentle way, puts you on equal footing with your doctor. If not, it helps to make you the CEO of your health. And my physician, I'll just let you know her name, Dr. Fran Langdon. She went out to California with me. She was in the operating room when I had my weight loss surgery. She helped to save my life. And because even at
Attorney Hoffner's on, but she's on mute.
Okay, thank you. Even at that weight, one of the things that overweight people just really don't want to do is go to the doctor because you have to get on the scale and you got to hear it. First time I went to see her, of course, I was getting ready I was talking to her about having surgery. She didn't let me weigh myself. She said, we already know what the issue is. She said, at least one of the issues. She said, we don't know what the underlying issues are, though. She said, so I don't want you to go home on that tonight. I want you to have a nice meal, go home, and just know that we are working on this, and this is going to be resolved. Wow. And she put me in touch with doctors, and she said, now, these are some of the questions you need to ask, but, you're curious. Any question you want to ask. If I don't know, I'm going to find out. She is absolutely wonderful. And I thank God for her. But it takes me to what you were saying about being the CEO of your health. You're the one who's in charge. You don't have to be a physician. You're the one who knows when something is not right with your body.
That's it. And then to let somebody convince you otherwise, I hate to say it, but it's blasphemy. For you to tell yourself,
that's right,
I'm feeling this, and allow
Reverend Dr. Hatch is back on.
You're not, when it's only you that's inside of that body that's having that experience, it should not happen, and it's unethical. And I think it's also unethical for a provider to have that much power to minimize, to dismiss what it is your experience is without being able to ask questions and helping to get to the underlying cause of why you're feeling those symptoms or feeling the way that you are.
Hey, I love it, and I appreciate you more than I can say. And, of course, Reverend Dr. Hatch, this is Dr. Knighton. You've heard her on the show before. We've got to get her to Chicago.
1 minute.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alex. She's an infection preventionist, and we're not talking about infection. Now they're beginning to talk about infection prevention. She's one of the few in the country. She's one of the tops in the world. And we need to get her here, and she needs to be lecturing our children. We need to know how we need to prepare our food, serve our food when we're at church and at these events. It's
30 seconds.
So I'm gonna connect the two of you to each other, because he's a leader, one of the leaders, not just in the Black church here in Chicago, but throughout the country. And he's also a great theologian. We need to get her before different audiences, white, black, brown,
10
yellow,
seconds.
and red. We need to do that. We really, really do.
Absolutely.
Stand by.
Attorney Hopper, make sure you come off mute, because I'm coming right to you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey everybody, call me at 773-763-9278. Have we declared the COVID emergency over too quickly? What do you think, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to know what your thoughts are. And what is the fallout? When people heard that May 11th, all of this would be over, they were like, okay, right. What it means is that the extra money that you were getting, the money that that was a bridge for you. It wasn't extra money. It was assistance. The same kind of assistance that Boeing and Lockheed Martin, the military contractors, the same kind of assistance that they get where they overcharge the government. They're the true welfare kings and queens. I'm just putting it out there. It's true. But they're never raked over the coals. They can't even get a real audit, unlike you and me. All right. So having said that, now the monies that you got, the extension of Medicaid, that's over. For example, the extension of your health care benefits, that's over. That's over. And so in Florida, for example, 250,000 Floridians have been kicked off Medicaid. As the governor is running for president, raking in big cash, from whom we need to find that out. But it's among many states that have begun unwinding these pandemic era rules that have barred states from removing people from Medicaid during a public health emergency. But when you don't have a public health emergency, of course, they can remove you from the rolls. So, I want to know what's going on, everybody. 600,000 people across the U.S. have been stripped of Medicaid coverage, and the numbers are growing, everybody. And there's a 7-year-old boy down in Florida who, because of the extension of these Medicaid benefits, was able to battle leukemia. You can only imagine what a relief that has been to his whole family, to his parents, and everyone. But now that they've been taken off the rolls, he's not going to have access to the care that he needs to keep leukemia at bay. Think about that, everybody. So before you go, I know you're going to be on Court TV, and you have a lot of things to do today. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, I just wanted to know what you think about this. Oh, it is devastating, Takesha. It is. And I want to know, what is your reaction to that? Because you are part Floridian. You've been practicing down there for decades. But I also want to know, does anyone have any legal recourse? COVID's still here, and people are not able to get the health care that they need.
Absolutely, Santita. This is devastating. I spend a fourth of my time every month in Florida, and I have a very active practice in Florida. So this does impact me directly in terms of what I see. And despite the fact that the NAACP did issue an advisory, a travel advisory for African Americans going to Florida because of some of these types of measures, although to be clear, this impacts everybody that's on Medicaid. So it's not just African Americans, but Black and brown and compromised communities are impacted the most. This is absolutely a devastating development. But Florida's governor is running for president. He is trying to outdo former President Trump in his shock value and trying to pander to those, I think, right-wing radicals. So the way to do that is to take these types of measures. Every week, he comes out with more initiatives that are really shocking, Santita. And because they have a Republican-controlled legislature, because of where this governor, who is all-powerful in Florida, he does have a lot of support. Because of all of that, these things are happening and more that people really don't, but they can't even get ahead of it, because as soon as they try to tackle one thing legally, and there's always legal recourse, there's always lawsuits that can be filed, and there are and will be more lawsuits filed on this very issue. But it takes time for lawsuits to get through the system, even when you file lawsuits on the basis of an emergency. So those children, for instance, those people who are cancer patients, who are availing themselves of medical benefits based on cancer treatment where they don't have the money to be able to pay, and cancer treatments are very expensive. So even people who have different types of insurance cannot always afford cancer treatments. And even when that's the case, that is an emergency. So an emergency appeal in the courts would certainly be valid in this instance, but it takes time, even in emergency situations, for cases to go through the court system. So is there legal recourse? Yes, there is, Santita. It has to go through the system, but I think what we have to do is look at what's happening to Florida. Every single day, there are new measures that are being passed that make it very difficult for some communities to live in Florida. We're talking basic living conditions. We are not out of COVID. People are still, they're not dying at record rates like they were before from COVID, but we are still in a pandemic. I know that Dr. Knighton speaks to this quite frequently. It's not over. We have to continue because this is a virus. And yet, in states like Florida and Georgia, where I live, a lot of times people have acted as if there was no pandemic. And it's very, very disconcerting. I can tell you, I travel to Florida so frequently, and I am often maybe the only person on the plane that has a mask going into Florida. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm one of very few traveling in the busiest airport in the world, that's Hartsfield Jackson Airport in Atlanta, with a mask on. People are acting as though the pandemic is over. So I believe, and the President of the United States has indicated thus. So given that that is the case of the policy narrative, the actions of DeSantis are shocking and disturbing, but they are consistent with the policy narrative relative to COVID.
Well,
and that's unfortunate.
Well, when you say that people have legal recourse, what do you mean? I mean, I'm thinking about this 7-year-old child, and I'm doubtless, if the child were 27, 27, 57, 67, 87, to be denied the opportunity to be well is just cruel to me.
Right, and there are thousands of people who are in the exact same predicament as that child, and so that would, and there are lawyers that do specialize in these types of cases. That could potentially be a class action case. I would dare say, and actually from the discussions that I've had in the legal with some legal folks, some lawyers in Florida who do social justice work and organizations that do social justice work, they are looking at some type of a class action filing, because you can always file an individual case opposing, because you can always oppose legislation. Just like people do it on a federal level, you can do it on a state level. You can, the question is, what is the likelihood of success? How long will it take? And when people's lives are at stake, the litigation could outlive the individuals. And that's the tragedy, especially when you have children, especially when you have dire emergencies, especially when you have cancer patients cancer patients need their treatments. They need, whether it's chemotherapy or the specialized treatments, to help them live right away. They can't have an interruption. And so the healthcare facilities that are providing care for children and for those in need, they don't want to turn them away because doctors have taken a Hippocratic oath They are not to turn away patients, but they also can't lose their jobs. And in a state like Florida, where there's certain mandates, the doctors, if they violate those mandates, are in fear of losing their jobs. So there is legal recourse. The system is slow. Unfortunately, I believe that there are children and affected individuals that won't live through the litigation, particularly if they're in dire need. But there are facilities and there are groups that will help people in dire need in these type of circumstances. Florida is just no longer becoming a very friendly state for people to be in my impression, especially if they are not of means. I think it's becoming very, very difficult to live in Florida. If you need public assistance, if you need any help because of medical conditions, because the state is very, very conservative. And when you have all branches of government being controlled by a conservative agenda, which is what we see, then it's more difficult for there to be real change. But they're not hopeless. It's just it's going to take longer.
Well, it's not even conservative, because socially, many of us are conservative. This is just cruel. I think we just need to call it what it is. And, I'm tired of them owning this kind of space. This is horrible. It's horrible. Before you go, what can be done? Does this boy, does he have an opportunity to go to another state? This is what's crazy. We talk about Cuba, they have a doctor on every corner. This doesn't happen in these poor developing countries who value education, so they educate their people. And they value healthcare, so they keep their people healthy. What can he do?
Well, what he can do, which he probably
new caller
already done, and when there's public attention, there are groups that usually reach out to family members and that will make their way to help him. There's a lot of, the one thing, Santita, that we haven't lost in this country, despite all these, what do you call them, cruel efforts, very conservative efforts, some call them stronger names. There's a humanitarian component to our existence that does exist. And those humanitarian groups that provide for children, and there are groups that provide for children, different foundations who are in these dire circumstances probably have reached out to him. If not, because there's public attention on this issue, because there are cases, social media in this case is a great thing because people are posting these stories on social media and getting the attention of entities and institutes that are reaching out and trying to help people in dire need. And they do exist in Florida. So legal recourse, that's always an option, but of course that requires getting a lawyer, getting the right lawyer who will take on these cases and being in the know, but that is an option. But the other is reaching out to foundations that when something becomes public, a lot of times they're surfing and reaching out to people that they can help.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, thank you for being with us today. Can we see you on Court TV today or this week?
Yes, I'll be on Court TV in a few minutes from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
And of course, she is on WAOK today at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time on her radio show. And she'll be back here tomorrow for Legal Q&A with CK from 7 to 8. Sending you so much love today. Hey, everybody, call me. Thank you. Media maven. That's right. That's what she's become. Santita Jackson, the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Before I pivot to you, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, I've got a caller, Princess, who wants to speak to this. Princess, what's on your mind today? Love your name.
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you and to everyone else. The reason why I was calling when we spoke about, I call it COVID-19. Actually, I called it a beast because COVID is slightly gone. This is the 4th month on which I am digesting the death of my sister, who was in the state of Tennessee. Over.
I'm so sorry.
Yes, ma'am. All I have to say to people is to be wise. And with that air index that was out yesterday of the heat, we have to be very careful. Keep your mask on. That's all I have to say to people. And if my sister was alive, she would tell you the same thing. But that's why I'm calling in this morning to let people know, be wise. Just be wise.
And wash your hands. Wash your hands.
Oh, most definitely, because I see that a lot of people are not doing that now. Where they're getting too relaxed. I'm not going into all these crowds. My spirit is not leading me to do that. You understand what I'm saying now?
Oh, yes, I do.
All I'm asking are people, when you gather, be wise. Be wise. And now you have the measles attack out here and the monkeypox.
You know, and the thing is, monkeypox is mild. That having been said, I think Dr. Knighton is on to something, as are you. We've normalized sickness when we ought to normalize wellness. And so we have to stop.
But they said it was picking up in Chicago. I heard this.
No, I'm saying it, but you know, colds pick up too. And I think that if we don't begin to eliminate food deserts, and if we're not able to buy a bundle of produce, you know, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, as readily as we can buy a Happy Meal, we are not going to get out of this. Because COVID,
no, we're not. We have to change our way of eating.
But you know, but it has to be cheaper too, because it is less expensive to get a Happy Meal than it is to get a bundle of vegetables and fruit, and that's ridiculous.
Yes, that's why I go home and I'm doing this summer in Tennessee. I go there to get myself watermelons, and I'm headed that way shortly for June.
Would you bring some watermelon back for me, please?
Yes, with the seed in it. The black seed inside of there.
Yes.
I'm not buying anybody's watermelon seedless. No, I'm not.
Thank you. Well, you know, you sound like my mom. My mother's like, I hope that watermelon, because my mother's like really, she's right to the point. Reverend Hatch knows this. She said, I hope that watermelon you bought has seeds in it. Mom, you know I got a watermelon with seeds. Thank you. And that's it. I'm like, okay. She said, what is that? That's not a watermelon. If God only gives you things that can reproduce, and they replicate themselves. That's how kind God is. That's how generous God is. You pull those seeds, dry them out, and you can plant them in the next season and get you some watermelon in the summer. So I'm sending you much love, but I want you to know our love and prayers. So many of the morning stars are sending you so much love, just as you lift up your sister into eternity. Know that she's making a way for you. God bless you. Princess sending her so much love. Well, Reverend Dr. Hatch, I tell you what, you're dealing with this on the ground. Well, of course, we're going to be pivoting to Congressman Jonathan Jackson and, of course, Alderman Will Hall and former president of the National Organization of Women, Terry O'Neill, and brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer, Attorney Mark Fancher, in the next segment. But you are dealing with people who are no longer able to get their health care. Let's just start there before we get to hunger in the next segment. What is the church being asked to do? And what can you do?
Well, you know, part of our ministry, of course, we're advocates for the poor. And, you know, in communities like the ones where I serve in West Garfield Park here in Chicago, which is one of, you know, the poorest communities in the city, we're saying COVID-19, but COVID-19 is not only a pandemic, but it was a pandemic. It is a pandemic that exposed the disparities that existed before the pandemic. So the pandemic exacerbated people who were already in poor health, with poor options, with food deserts, with access to healthcare deserts, with disinvested communities. You know, when Chicago closed 50 schools under Rahm Emanuel, 5 of those 50 were in West Garfield Park. 1 out of every 10 was in this one community. And so the disinvestment, all of this, the pandemic exposed, and we're calling them underlying conditions. We need people who are already unhealthy before a pandemic. And so the danger of saying the pandemic is over, well, it's over for a lot of people, honestly. I mean, they had the Taylor Swift 3-day bonanza here in Chicago with tens of thousands of people. and crowds, and great crowds all over, because the pandemic is over for a lot of people. But the underlying conditions, the pre-existing conditions, the pre-existing disparities before pandemic are ongoing and going to be exacerbated, because now, we're going to cut resources that address the pandemic because we've declared it over. And so all of this is going to be exacerbated again. So we have to advocate. We're in a fight. And, DeSantis is not really the same as Trump. And there are more than one DeSantis out there. This guy went to Yale and to Harvard. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's using the wedge issues, the social issues, the attack on wokeness to basically stimulate part of the base that's moved by, a lot of nonsense. But it really is all about economics and money. And ultimately, the philosophy that some people don't deserve health care, some people don't deserve quality of life, and then ultimately the corporate titans need an underpaid workforce.
Well, have you heard these commercials about him? Because he was a member of Congress. I don't. Oh, no, because he's too far to the right. See, Trump is more of a libertarian. There are too many people I know him, who know him in his politics. He's transactional. You have to remember what happened when he ran in 2016. You had Bernie, who had taken up the left. You had the mainstream Democrats and women who the air had been sucked out of the room by Hillary Clinton. Then you had who was left. And that's who he went after. That was a low-hanging fruit. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that because he was going to run in 2007. In 2000, he was going to run on Ross Perot's ticket, which is not what we interpret as MAGA. So everyone, you have to really pay attention to people and their politics, period. And know that for him it's transactional. And know that, unlike Trump, DeSantis was trying to stop you from getting your Social Security. He was trying to cut that back. I'm not making an argument for anyone. I'm just saying I have a scientific, it's really a non-emotion based approach to politics, because that's not what this is. Reverend Hatch, this ain't no emotional game. It's not. I think that when we get emotional about it, this, you work your push forever. People.
Your point is well taken. It's really Trump telling us who DeSantis is. I'm saying about commercials. Yeah, it's really Trump telling us, because Trump is more populist. DeSantis is an ideologue and ultimately an elitist who just don't believe everybody deserves the same thing.
And
everybody's life matters.
Before you get people angry with you, or even me, but I'll take it. You're not making an argument for DeSantis or Trump. What you're saying is you've got to look at what it is that people are running on. All of the anti-DeSantis commercials are letting you know what he was trying to do when he was in Congress, which was to cut your Social Security. Cut back on your health care. It was all of that. So the thing is, whoever is running, I think that whoever is, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, you need to find out where they are on health care. You need to find out where their economic policies are. And I don't mean some high-flying economic policies, Reverend Hatch. I mean SNAP benefits. Where are you on that? Reverend Hatch, I got 2 minutes for you. Because you're seeing people who are hungry right now. You're seeing them today.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse, and we have to continue to fight back, because ultimately we're the ones that can see people who are literally so desperate that will make the living conditions in our community absolutely untenable.
And you know what? Alex, if you can bring it down just a little bit, what concerns me is the social fallout. Remember more than 10 years ago when a church was robbed during their Bible study?
Yeah.
I mean, y'all, we've got some crazy...
People at the bottom of the empire tend to turn on each other, and that it makes it worse.
All right. A good pastor said it. So we're going to welcome Congressman Jonathan Jackson to the show in just a few minutes to talk about SNAP. What got snapped in this budget deal? A lot of folks who were already struggling to get food, they're absolutely not going to get it now. So what's going to happen here, everybody? Now that the COVID monies are being taken from you, what is that going to look like? As hunger rises in America, what is that going to look like? Sending much love to my sister who is working on that cash register at the grocery store here in Chicago. She got $350 a month in SNAP benefits. Now it's down to $250. She's got a teenage son. She was talking about feeding him. She wasn't even talking about feeding herself. And I've been talking about her for a week now because it breaks my heart that she is ringing up food. She is in a warehouse full of food that she cannot afford to buy. And no provisions are being made for her and everybody else in that store to get something to eat. Shame, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. And we'll be talking about these issues and so many more, July 15th through the 19th at the Rainbow Push Coalition Convention. I want you to be there. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Pastor Hatch, this is a mess. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
and remember, we're on Facebook Live, so you can talk to everybody. Because I want to know from you about the social fallout.
It's going to be horrific.
What do you mean?
Because, crime is going to increase. Violence is going to increase. Because, people in desperation are going to basically turn on each other unless, again, those of us who are out in the field here are trying to bring people together and mutually, create opportunities for mutual aid and then lift people to a higher level. But so much of the debauchery in the culture that we're fighting against as well. And so it's gonna be really, really bad as people get more desperate on the ground, because they're not gonna just starve. And then of course we've got young people that have been out of school in the pandemic who didn't go back to school. Everybody's wondering where the 50,000 kids that were missing in CPS after the pandemic, where they're out of contact. That's where they are. And then and creating havoc, using social media.
Attorney Fancher's on.
And their families are fragile, and their parents are desperate. Those that have them. And so this is very, very bad for the national, social fabric, and it's gonna be very challenging. We're living in a country that is in the throes of disintegration in so many ways, and so it really is. It's a time for prophets, and it's a time for advocates, voices, organizers. This is the work that we've been called to do.
We have Attorney Fancher on with us.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Of course, it's wonderful hearing your voice. We've got Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch with us, and we're just talking about the fallout.
Attorney O'Neill's on.
Okay. Attorney O'Neill, how are you?
I'm just great. Santita, how are you?
I am doing fine. We're going to have Congressman Jackson. He's going to run in and out on us today, but glad that he's going to be with us for a hot second. Okay. But you all keep talking to each other. This is attorney, I'm sorry, I'm looking for something here. This is attorney Terry O'Neill, the former national president of NOW. And okay, wait. Let me see what I sent you. I'm looking for this article. I'm trying to bring it down. And of course, Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer, and Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, a pastor of one of our great churches here. So everybody, we should have a great show. Okay.
Alderman Reverend Hall's on.
Miss Thatcher, how you doing? Listen to you often.
Oh, how are you, sir? It's my pleasure.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we got to fight ahead, don't we?
Absolutely. Alderman Hall, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. I'm going to need you a little closer in on your microphone. Okay?
Gotcha.
Okay.
I just have one.
Okay, no worries. Okay, very good. All right, everybody. Okay. All right, everybody. Sorry, I'm trying to do a few things at once, but please feel free to speak amongst yourselves. All right. Whew. Okay. And let me see who I've got here. Okay. All right, everybody.
Just 1 minute.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let me know when we have the congressman up. And we will.
Yes, I'm going to call him at 7:08.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we have you, Attorney
30
Fancher.
seconds.
Yes, good morning.
Attorney O'Neill.
Yes, good morning.
Reverend Dr. Hatch.
Good morning.
Alderman Hall.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay, fantastic. That's my mic check.
10 seconds.
All right, here we go.
Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Tuesday, I was about to say March, but it's actually June 6th. We are in the summertime, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars. growing every moment on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only page where I can accept friends, everybody. They're kicking everybody else off of the Santita Jackson page because it's just a landing page. But my real page is the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and please meet me there and be my friend. And of course, I'm on Twitter at SantitaJ, at SantitaJ. Everybody sign up for me, Yvonne and Robert and everyone who is there. To Keisha, Daryl, everybody, Mark. Please, please become my friend on Twitter and meet everybody here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Let's talk about SNAP benefits. Who receives food benefits? It may not be who you think. In fact, most people who receive food benefits are actually working. Remember, Walmart, as part of their intake process, was to teach people how to apply for these benefits. Not just SNAP benefits, but all kinds of welfare benefits, even though these people are working hard every day. So let's talk about this, everybody, because in this debt ceiling deal, it's harder for people to get these benefits, and they need them desperately. They need them desperately. We all do. So let's talk about that with Congressman Jonathan Jackson, Alderman William Hall, Attorney Terry O'Neill, the former national president of NOW, Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch, pastor of the New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, great church here in Chicago, and of course, Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer and author, everybody. So let's get to some of these headlines so that we can get to the rest of the show, everybody. What is going on in Chicago? Well, it's going to be a beautiful day, a warm day in Chicago. We'll have a high of 68 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You're going to have a high of 84 degrees. Thunderstorms, though. And in the NHL, well, the Golden Knights are leading in their series 2-0 over the Panthers. They won 7-2 last night. In the WNBA, the Fever will be facing off against the Sky. And in Major League Baseball, the Twins will be facing off against the Rays today. The White Sox will be in New York with the Yankees. And the Padres shut out the Cubs yesterday, 5-0. What happened, Cubbies? We can't have that. Of course, in Ukraine, a major dam in southern Ukraine was destroyed, prompting mass evacuations and fear of large-scale devastation. Prince Harry has testified in the highest court in the land in Great Britain today, as his years-long battle against Britain's tabloid media reaches its most dramatic stage thus far. This is the first time a senior British royal will personally appear in the witness box since 2002. An investigation is underway after two private planes carrying migrants recently arrived in California's capital of Sacramento. Investigators have determined that the migrants were asylum seekers and were carrying documents reportedly from the Florida government. The state attorney general's office in California is working to confirm details about the migrants and who may be behind these flights. And interestingly, these migrants are not just being dropped off in Montana and in Idaho. They're being dropped off in communities where they need farm workers. Don't sleep on that, everybody. The pilot of the unresponsive private jet that crashed and killed 4 people, including a 2-year-old baby and their mother, in southwestern Virginia on Sunday was seen slumped over his seat when the fighter jet attempted to draw his attention mid-flight, according to a CNN source. Investigators are looking into hypoxia, a shortage of oxygen in the blood, as a reason why the pilot and passengers didn't respond to attempts by air traffic controllers and other civilian aircraft to contact the ill-fated plane. Indeed, once the plane crashed, it was a sonic boom heard throughout the DMV, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. God bless all of those souls, and those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. What do you think about this debt ceiling deal? What about the SNAP benefits? People, can you imagine really having to be perpetually hungry? So many people are. And so we've got Congressman Jonathan Jackson with us today to talk to us about what we actually got with this debt deal. He said, I rise today not just as a representative of my constituents, but as an advocate for tens of millions of Americans who are navigating the turbulent waters of economic hardship. And you went to talk about the farmer, the backbone of our nation's food supply. Many of these farmers, Congressman Jackson, when we saw them at the beginning of the pandemic, they were complaining that I've got the produce, but I can barely get it from the fields to the street. I can't even get it to the marketplace, and no one will let me get this food to the people who need it the most. But we're finding that the people who receive food benefits, according to this NBC News report, and the Kaiser Family Foundation study. It's not who we think it is. Most people who receive food benefits, Congressman Jackson, are actually working every day, 4 out of 5 of them. Welcome back to the show, Congressman Jackson. What happened with SNAP, with this debt ceiling deal, and where do you see all of this going?
Thank you, Santita. Love you. Love your show.
Love you.
Thank you for having me on. Well, the debt ceiling, a brief recap, the Congress has the power of the purse as organized by our government. The Congress has to make the appropriation, has to grant the executive branch the authority to go forward. And so that's why it has to be voted upon. And before the president can sign, it's just a simple check and balance. And what the majority party did on this round was simply say that we will not approve America paying its bills until we see, quote unquote, fiscal responsibility. And what does fiscal responsibility mean? How can we leverage the backbones of the poor and make them work more and receive less benefits? That's the short of it. And with that, it was granted. And there was some moving around of the furniture, if you will. More veterans were included to the good. Children that were in foster care was included to the good, expanding their opportunity not to be dismissed and kicked out at the age of 18, but to expand their benefits to the age of 24. That's a great thing. But veterans never should have been on the table to negotiate with. We all are support of the veterans. The Republicans weren't, in all fairness. They were not towing the line for that. They had put them on the chopping block when they said they wanted mandatory 20% cuts, then 13% cuts. So the Democrats did deliver on veterans benefits. And then what was a concession was increasing the working age from women and from the age of 49 to 54. So that's something that we're not proud of, not happy with. The alternative was to run the economy over into the cliff. And there are people in the Congress that are that mean that are willing to do so. Now, what does SNAP look like going forward? SNAP is 75% of the agriculture bill. They've already signaled now that before this bill is passed, they want to see concessions and reduction of benefits into the SNAP program. We've got 35 million people that are food insecure, not receiving enough nutrition in the United States of America. How did America get to the point where 12% of its citizens need supplemental food assistance? Somewhere you have to agree that charity begins at home. We have to feed our own people. And with the onset of malnutrition, you're talking about gum disease, mouth disease, and dental hygiene, and physical issues, and our children growing into pediatric obesity. And if the average American today weighed what the average American weighed 40 years ago, we'd be looking at $1 trillion of health care savings. So it's all one pool that we're looking from. We have chronic obesity because our children are being malnourished in our own country. And 77% of the persons in our military do not qualify from the age of 18 to 25 because they're simply have obesity or not physically fit enough to serve in our voluntary armed services in the United States. So it's a bigger issue. It all ties in together. And that's what the fight's been about, and that's what's going to be about before this farm bill is passed.
Congressman Jonathan Jackson, I know you're going to have to leave us very shortly, but I want to ask you about something that you raised in your statement about the SNAP benefits and your concerns, even as you signed this legislation, really staving off the default, what would have been an historic default in the midst of this de-dollarization, as more and more of the so-called developing but ascendant nations are moving away from the dollar as their reserve currency. You said SNAP is more than just a social program. You said it's an economic pillar. And that economic pillar, most of these people are seen as debtors to the nation, not as creditors. And we don't even see SNAP as being part of the farming program. I mean, about farming, funding our farms and what they produce. What do you mean it's an economic pillar?
Well, there is a multiplier effect that after you spend money how many times it circulates, and there's an accelerator component to how many times, if you will, the function and the derivative of that dollar starts moving around, circulating within the economy. When the person receives a food benefit, they're able to redeem it, go to the grocer. The grocer has employees that they're now able to maintain, and they're able to pay their rent. They're able to buy more produce. They're able to now have deposits into bankings and institutions from the employer. So the SNAP benefit for every dollar that's put out there, $1.50, is cycled throughout the economy. So it's an economic engine. So when people eat, it's beneficial.
So what remains unsaid before you go? What do you want us to know, and what do you want us to do?
Well, this isn't the time to talk about it, but we certainly should think about how do we get in this mess. We're talking about what was once the greatest middle-class economic engine in the world that was growing is now being diminished, that we've got more wealth at the top. God bless them, but it's been rules and policies that have steered us to this cliff, that there aren't enough people making it, that we have children going hungry in American schools. Now, it's a great thing that we have charity and we can do things abroad, but we have people that are missing and hurting at home. That is the ultimate in hypocrisy, and the people that are hurting are the ones that have contributed the most. So why the vengefulness and the meanness towards women and children in our budgets? We should be discussing this not from the left and the right. What about having economists tell us, the Office of Management and Budget, here are what the numbers are so everybody can get on the same page? We've gone to a very partisan and very vitriolic period in our discourse. But we're talking about spin as opposed to talking about substance. We're talking about taking advantage of someone and who should be left out and blaming people for their economic condition. The policies have to change. There are more people working harder than ever today with fewer opportunities. And I think people are smart enough, care enough, they want to see the whole picture. And that's what we should demand. We're not talking about the economists leading us to share with us what's on the table. We should have a fireside chat from the president where everyone sees what's on the president's desk so that they will know. And we've now increased the military budget to over $800 billion. If you think about that in just one snapshot, we're 4% of the world's population, and we are producing 50%, over 50% of the world's defense budget. What we did in Iraq was better than $6 trillion of an error, a mistake, of harm that went in the wrong direction. Had we invested $6 trillion in our own country in the last 2 decades, where would we be? That's why we have to fight for sane policies.
Congressman Jonathan Jackson, let me sneak this question in on you. You are up on the Hill. Have you met any Republicans you can talk to, with whom you can reason?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. There is a body. I think the attention goes to the extremists, but there are many that are hardworking that see the bigger picture. But when you put on a jersey for Team X or Team Y, you somehow get trapped in there. And with the people on the outside of the punch bowl, if you will, the media, the pundits, the donors, the funders, they start attacking them. So they have to toe the line. But yeah, there are many that see the same facts. They just vote along the party line. I mean, I'm a Democrat. My family is Democrat. Some people are Republicans. Their family is Republican. I mean, you may see the other side. Yes. Are they reasonable, rational? Yes. There's a small group that unfortunately gets outsized attention that diminishes and, pushes us all in the wrong direction.
Congressman Johnson.
There were 149 Republicans that voted for the debt ceiling. There were to increase it. I mean, they want to, but the backlash is severe. Look at what Marjorie Taylor Greene said the other day. She was all about release the tapes, let's get the message out there. And then she says, no, let's not release the tapes because people in the, I can't recall the name of this group, the sedition, something group, they could become violent against some of the people that were in the films. So they fear their own.
So we have to be sensitive to, and I think we need to be knowledgeable of what a lot of these people who are just presented as being unreasonable. You're saying that when you are up there, it's a different story. I mean, you're actually talking to people, but you also made that effort, Congressman. When you first got there, you actually walked over to the Republicans and introduced yourself and shook hands with them, and they were not hostile to you.
Our offices are side by side. We eat together. We see each other in the gym. We see each other in the session. So that part is civil. But think about this, Santita. It's been less than 2.5 years since President Biden's inauguration. Let us not forget that the President of the United States could not, on his inauguration day, come to the mall and greet the American people because of fear of danger from persons in our military.
Oh, boy. I have no words for that.
It was less than 2.5 years ago. The President of the United States could not come out onto the mall and do his inaugural address. Those were empty seats. There were flags out on the mall, so it was a very dangerous environment. And we've got the leading person in the Republican poll right now that is going in and out of court, who was telling the core group of his constituents, the leading person in the Republican Party in the polls, saying it's not that bad, let's go into bankruptcy, let's default. Their leading candidate for president was saying that just last week.
What did you, when he said that, what did you say? I mean, you got an MBA from Northwestern. I mean, so I'm just saying that, and you've been on the Board of Trade. I mean, so you understand economics. You've had to work in this space for quite some time. When he said that, what did you think?
This is so reckless and so dangerous that he's willing to win at all costs, even if millions, in this instance, billions of people around the world are affected by U.S. interest rates. And he simply does not care. That's unconscionable. So as we raise, I tell you, I went to Kenya not too long ago, and the shilling was trading maybe for 110, 115 to the dollar last quarter, 2 quarters ago, starting the January, the March quarter. By the time Powell raised the interest rates, Yellen, we got to 140, 135 shillings to the dollar. They've lost 20% of their purchasing power, the Kenyan economy, because we were raising interest rates, and they used the dollar as reserve currency. But having nothing wrong, but having been affiliated with us, they lost 20% of their purchasing power. Now they're going through budget cuts and can't finish transit programs, school programs, things they had budgeted for, saved for, taxed for, to move forward in their development, because they were tied to us, and now they've gotten hurt. So that ripple effect would have gone all around the world times 10.
Wow.
That's why we had to pay our bills and not run this economy over the cliff, or not paying our bills and sending out a seismic shockwave. That's what was on the table in paying our bills, is to try to keep together a fragile world. Santita, there are better than 300 million people around the world that are being forced into different terrains, different countries, because their regions are no longer hospitable to live in because of climate change and war and conflict. If you separate that group alone, that would be the 5th largest nation on earth. Is now, if you could put a flag on all the people that are forced into immigration around the world, that'd be the 5th largest nation on the world. The climate is warming and people are having to move, which is going to destabilize other countries. I don't want to go into the countries that are on the radar that are going to be potentially failed states that you can look up on any given day in the newspaper, headline news, and see people running in the streets because the government cannot feed them.
Well, Congressman, you don't have to do that. New York City is sinking. Literally. That's the way it came out last week. The buildings are too heavy for the ground. I mean, we're seeing a whole lot of population shifts. Congressman Jonathan Jackson, it's always a joy to have you. And of course, we've got Alderman Will Hall, who you know so well, and Reverend Dr. Marshall Elijah Hatch. Attorney Terry O'Neill's with us, and of course, Attorney Mark Fancher. So I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. We've got a lot to unpack. Yes, Congressman.
You're in great hands. You're the best.
I love you so much. I know you've never heard me say I love you so much, Reverend Dr. Hatch, to a congressman. That is my brother. Yeah, I fully disclosed that. But I'm glad we got that information. It's always important to get it. Reverend Dr. Hatch and Attorney O'Neill and Attorney Fancher and Alderman Will Hall. It's important to get that on the ground information. A lot of people are feeling political pressure to go against what would be good sense. I mean, SENCE and CENTS. So let's talk about this today. Let's talk with Alderman Will Hall and find out what these cuts are going to look like on the ground here in Chicago. Because he's got to help construct the budget after the Cook County Board of Commissioners gives it to us. You got to figure it out. I want to know what you're going to do because the people are going to be at your door. I cannot wait to hear this. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show, July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. You need to be there, everybody. I think I might even have a birthday party in the middle of it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Mark, I'm mindful of the fact that you've got to leave at 7:45, so I'm going 8:45 your time, so I'm going to pivot right to you, okay?
Thank you. No problem.
Of course. The congressman was supposed to stay on for 5 minutes, but, he stayed a little longer, so I took what I could. But what do you think about, what did you all, why don't you respond to what you heard from him? Let me start with you, Attorney Fancher, if you'd like, or if you'd like to put that on the air, somebody respond. What you hear?
Well, I thought he just hit the nail on the head in terms of the fundamental problem with our system, that people get elected to go and to represent the people's interests, but they are not allowed to do so by political and institutional forces. That's a fundamental flaw in our system of government.
I mean, it really is. I mean, he says, you can talk to some of these people. And I think it's important for us to know that. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene. But by the time she gets to her office and she said something affirmative, you've got the trolls and you've got the people who've been trained and who are really put by the telephones to call and tell her to back off. I'm not defending her. I'm just trying to let you all know, and you see this yourself, Alderman Hall, Reverend Hall, you see how there are coordinated attacks upon you. You can take one stance, and then when you get back to your office, your office is up in arms because you're told, hey, people didn't like when you did bump, boom. Are you not seeing that, Alderman Hall?
Yeah, we saw it live and in living color last week at City Council. I mean, you heard the hurt of people that were like, hey, we make essentially an executive decision to pay the bills. And that's the biggest part. Like, these are bills that have to be paid. If we didn't, it was similar to the debt crisis that we saw play out in Washington, D.C. If these bills are not paid, the migrant crisis would have escalated to times 10 because vendors needed to get paid. Like, people think that when a new mayor comes in, that it's an all-new budget. No, you have to assess what needs to be done. And so that pain, though, was like, hey, where's the same effort, though, when there's a crisis in black neighborhoods to do an assessment and make executive decisions to invest and to prevent? And so, I mean, it's hit ahead. But the moment that everyone heard, and I think that you're going to begin to see it across the country, is when it comes budget season, as we put, different things in front of black people, especially in inner city, where's this passion going to be hit? You know what I mean? Like, we want to see the same.
You have a caller.
Latino caucus members and Latino electeds go this hard for blacks to get their fair share of funding and budget. And the Black and Brown Coalition, I think it's a conversation that we must have because this is the new America.
Well, would you come? Would you come on and in the coming days and talk about it? Maybe even tomorrow if you have time.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'd like to know about that fight that broke out on the floor of the nation's third largest city. I want you to talk about that.
I mean, the cutoff is free.
Because I mean, it was ugly.
It's a problem. Yeah, it's going to be a problem because this black and brown coalition narrative. That's not where the rank and file black people are. And I just test them
30 seconds.
In my neighborhood, and I drove down Madison.
Hold that thought. Yeah. I think I got our show tomorrow. How about that? Alderman Hall, let us know if you can come on, and Reverend Hatch, let us know if you can come on. If it's not tomorrow, then it should be Friday. Because we need to talk about that.
Yep.
10 seconds.
I'm available tomorrow or Friday. Either or, it's fine.
We need to
stand by.
That. Stand by. I got my guy telling me hush.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I want to thank Megan Financial, my new sponsor, for all the work that they do. Ron Whittingham, I'm going to get him on the show from Megan Financial, and soon you'll be hearing directly from him on everyday financial literacy principles that we all need to know. Financial literacy, we're going to be doing that here on the Santita Jackson Show. And what I love about Megan Financial is that they want to be your financial advisor. Not if you have high net worth. No. If you're middle class, if you're working class, if you're poor, if you're working in one of these fast food restaurants, they want to make space for you so you can know how to build a nest egg for retirement and for emergencies. That is what they do. They deal with people who have a little, and they make that little become much. When you place it in a master's hands, not just the master's hands, you can do a whole lot of good things, everybody. Some financial advisors are only interested in managing your money when you have a lot of it. No, that's not what they do. They're different. Make it financial, everybody. So I want you to call them at 708-444-1090. 708-444-1090. We want to get them on some college campuses before people get their first real jobs. And some people are working their way through high school. And we want them to talk to Megan Financial. Some people are working their way through college. We want them to talk to Megan Financial. So go to meganfinancial.com, MEGENT, financial, financial.com. Everybody, we're going to be talking with Alderman Will Hall about what happened with the black and brown community in City Council. We're going to do that tomorrow. Of course, because you just had a whole lot to say about this. Reverend Dr. Elijah Hatch, we got to talk about this because, as you said, this is the future, and people are trying to break it up. These migrants are being brought here; they're not being dropped in Idaho and in North Dakota and South Dakota. They're being dropped in communities where you farm. Outside of New York City is farm country. Everybody, that's what they do. Yeah, in New York. That's what they do. They're being dropped in Chicago. We farm here. In California, we farm here. That's where they're being taken to. Don't think that Greg Abbott is just, the governor of Texas, is just dropping these people wherever he wants to drop them. No. It's strategic because America was built on unpaid labor. Okay, I know the narrative is that we were built by immigrants. No, we were built by laborers who were not paid. They were slaves. Then we opened the door for immigrants to come here and to build on top of what was built. And we're still trying to get something for nothing, and it's terrible. Terrible thing. It's corporate policy. That's what's driving this. So let's talk about SNAP benefits. I mean, Attorney Mark Fancher, before you go, I mean, what do you make of we just heard Congressman Jackson talk to us about these SNAP benefits. It's just fundamentally immoral, I think, for people not to be able to eat. This is terrible.
It is, and I think that what it really prompts us to do, to the extent that there are those of us who have not done so already, is to step back from this and take an honest look at our political system and the players who populate it. If the Democratic Party was the party that it represents itself to be, the party that's supposed to look out for the interests of the poor, the interests of the workers, the interests of those who are otherwise oppressed, communities of color, if they really, really were, and if they were principled, and if they truly were in an antagonistic relationship with the Republican Party, we would not be where we are today. Because if there was an honest concern about what has happened with this debt ceiling deal, then what they would have done on the front end is they would have told the Republican Party, you take the country off the cliff if you want to, but you do it at your own peril. Because what we're about to do is we're about to put your business out on Main Street. They would have immediately begun a public education, a public political education process where they would have explained in detail to the American public the implications of raising the budget for the military, by trillions and trillions of dollars while taking money away from the poorest people. They would have explained the fact that notwithstanding the Republicans' rhetoric, that what they were proposing to do would hurt the very people who constitute the base of the Republican Party. They would have made it so clear to the public that the Republican Party would have never dared to consider going forward with anything that would result in the country collapsing, because they would know that because the country is so well educated, because they're so aware of what's going on, that they would take the blame for it. And all of the people who have the power, who are behind them, would take the blame for it. But none of that happened, because the Democratic Party is complicit with the Republican Party in all of this. How can a principled person go into a room with Republican representatives and make a deal that says that in order to satisfy you, what we're going to do is we're going to continue to feed the military machine with trillions of dollars, and we're going to take food off of the plates of the people who are most at risk, and then emerge from that with a smile and say we've done a good thing? What anybody who is a genuine freedom fighter would do would to say, we're calling your bluff. If you want to take the country off of the cliff, you take it off. But because we're committed to freedom, because we're committed to democracy, because we're committed to justice, you take it off the cliff if you want to, but we're all going to blame you, and then we're going to rebuild. And when we rebuild, you're not going to fare too well. But none of that happened because, as it has been said so many times, the U.S. does not have two parties. It has one party with two names. They play a game every few years. They play the same game every 2 years about the debt ceiling. People should be wise to it. People should know that the Democratic Party is as much to blame as the Republican Party for this whole thing. And I think that we who are really independent thinking, people who are committed to justice, need to finally be done with both parties. And we really need to do something in the way of revolution, which begins to establish a new society, a new world for people who really count. Politicians don't count. And when I say politicians, I don't necessarily mean somebody is a politician just because they got elected to office, because there are freedom fighters who get elected to office. They stand on principle. They take the hit. They take the consequences of what they do, and they do great things for the people that they represent. But I'm talking about the people who go in, and because a little pressure is applied to them, because they're threatened, because their personal circumstances are at risk, they fold, they buckle, and they go along with the program. Those kinds of people we have no use for.
Is there anything you want to say before you go? I know you've got a busy morning.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, I mean, you talk about a mic drop. Everyone. Of course, that is the brilliant attorney Mark Fancher, a regular on this show, part of the family here. And part of the family, he's not been on the show yet, but I'm so glad that he's here today. Congratulations to newly installed Alderman Will Hall, Reverend Will Hall, Pastor Will Hall. Reverend Hall, you're going to take this hit like the president. It's harder to get to the president and the vice president, as well it ought to be. But, you know, our aldermen, our alders, shall I say, our state representatives, even our congressmen and women. I mean, we see y'all. What is this going to look like, feel like, for people not to be able to eat when people are hungry? How does that work? How's that going to work?
First of all, Santita, thank you for making space for my voice, this new journey, new chapter, and being very young, but being surrounded by the wisdom of yourself, your family, your father, and mother. Thank you. It looks bad.
We're proud of you. We are proud of you.
Thank you. Let's look at the 6 wards. I mean, this is what it does look like in a ward where there's only one grocery store to cover a population of 54,000. The local grocery store are corner stores in which and prices that are marked up twice to, exploit those who do use EBT cards. And so what it looks like is those situations become worse, in which, as a former student at DePaul University as an econ major, the demand for food is high as it is. Inflation has taken the cost of food to record height. So the demand is there, and at the same time, the supply is becoming shorter. Right? I went to Whole Foods just to grab a quick bite to eat, and I've never seen freezers, and I've never seen those interfacing refrigerators empty. And so what we're looking at is not only the supply for food being cut, but also the access to food. This is taking food deserts and food insecurities to new heights. And this is where it gets very dangerous, is because, from a federal perspective, where the strokes of the pens are fighting these sick budgets and fighting to keep the poor from having access, we see one party that upholds the Bible as their moral document. I read in that book, and I preached from that book, that says, when I was hungry, you fed me. And so we vote in ways that reflect our values and our principles. And so the question now becomes, when we hear this language, especially from our current Mayor Brandon Johnson, about investing in people, this is what it looks like. Can we not have a heart to make sure that there's fresh food accessible to those who are struggling to make $1 out of 15 cents? We fail to realize that those who are receiving these benefits that are now being snatched away are working 2 or 3 jobs. Minimum wage does not pay minimum bills. And so we must ask ourselves, as a nation and as a city, who have we intentionally cut off? Who have we decided to omit from this table in which we as a city, the 5th largest economy in the world, right? And so we have to continue at a federal, state, and at a city level to make sure that the budget, which is a moral document, reflects
New caller, 2 in total.
People's well-being, physically, mentally, as well as those who are in need of next generation child care.
Absolutely. Attorney Terry O'Neill, I'm struck by this brilliant analysis by Congressman Jackson, by Alderman Will Hall, Pastor Will Hall. And then I look at this headline from NBC News: who receives food benefits? It may not be who you think. 4 out of 5 people who receive these food benefits they're from working families. Remember, Walmart, part of the intake process was teaching you how to fill out papers for welfare, for SNAP benefits, all of that. I mean, these people who get these benefits work hard every day, and they're now being asked to eat less, or should I say have less to eat, and continue to work. Now you got to work for it. Help me.
Yes, Santita. I mean, disproportionately, the people who are going to be affected by by being cut off from food stamps are women, and specifically Black and brown women. So that's who is being targeted right now with this Republican, feed the military and don't feed the people agenda. I live in the state of Tennessee, as you know. It's a poorer state than Illinois for sure, and yet in the state of Tennessee, the minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. Santita, in a poor state like Tennessee, there is not one single county, not one, where $7.25 an hour is a living wage for a single person, a single adult living alone, let alone an adult who has dependents to care for. Not one county where $7.25 is a living wage. And when I say living wage, I mean you're not ever going out, for a bowling on weekend, but just the bare minimum of keeping your head above water. Okay. So what we're saying, and then as you noted, Santita, I believe it's most of the people who are being cut off from food stamps under this new deal are already working, right? Mm-hmm. They're already working. So, and I would add to that, they're working, but they don't have enough money to feed themselves. Okay, but let's also be clear. Just because you technically don't have a dependent that you can claim on your taxes doesn't mean you don't have people who depend on you. Older women are very often the financial support for their adult children and their grandchildren, especially in poor communities where the wages are low. So this whole thing, able-bodied people have to work. Sit down and take a seat, sir. The white men who are very well paid say this, and it just makes my blood boil, because the reality of the lives of the women that are being attacked by these wealthy white men is just completely different from what they imagine.
Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, before we go to the callers, your thoughts?
Well, this is, these are decisions made by people who are far removed from the reality that was just described. And, it's absolutely diabolical. And when you also juxtapose the military budget being increased, and knowing how much waste, fraud, and abuse is in that military budget. I mean, we've seen reports where just recently, I think 60 Minutes talked about how
New caller, 3 total.
Many of the weapons manufacturers have monopolized those markets to the extent where the markup is incomprehensible of what we're actually paying for the military supplies. I mean, there was a markup, a part for a weapon system that should cost $300 costs $10,000. Mm-hmm. And so the waste, the fraud, the abuse of the military-industrial complex, I mean, it's unconscionable that we're really taking away money for human uplift and putting it into that corrupt military-industrial complex is unconscionable. And we're going to pay for it socially and politically. Dr. King was right prophetically that, listen, any nation that spends more money for its military than it does programs of human uplift is facing, existentially facing a moral and social death.
And that's what we're looking at. And that's what we're living. Let me get some of these callers in before we go, and I'm going to get some closing thoughts from all of you on the other side. Let me hear from Tommy from California. Tommy, got about 90 seconds for you. Make your comment. Hey.
Hi, Santita. Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
And whenever I heard that gentleman talking about we don't have two parties, we have one party in this country. No, we do have two parties in this country. And they're not both sides of the same coin. They're not. They're two wings of the same bird. They're not. Because 3 times the debt limit went up under Donald Trump. The Democrats didn't even flinch or you hold the country hostage or anything. Now, if the Republicans were really trying to cut the budget down a little bit or save revenue, then how about ending the tax breaks they gave to the millionaires, the billionaires, and the multinational corporations that are $2.8 trillion a year before we ever start bringing in a dime? This wasn't about that. This was to bring Biden's numbers down. And if they could crash the economy, then they would blame the whole thing on him. Or they would take equal amount of blame, but it would ultimately be better for them in the next election. And, but they did, everything they did was for political reasons. And the Democrats did not do that whenever it was under Donald Trump was the president. Every time the debt ceiling came up, because it's money we already spent. We already spent it. We already proved it. I don't know why they're having to approve it again in the first place.
Well, because the corporate media, because of the way the discussion is being framed, and it's all being driven by corporate values and the corporate bottom line. And I think that's why when people say that,
the Democrats are terrible at messaging.
Well, they're not just
Democrats are terrible at messaging.
They're not just terrible at messaging. You have both parties that have been pulled under the corporatist wing. That's always been the fight that progressives have had within the Democratic Party.
There are corporate Democrats. There are, but
they have
again, the Democrats never threatened to take the economy under Trump or anything. Right. We've never even considered that.
Well, I think not in the short term, but when you have NAFTA, which we got under a Democratic president, we knew that it would end up here. It was going to kill American industry.
Those were negotiated by Reagan and by Bush Sr.
Yeah, but no,
NAFTA and CAFTA. And Bill Clinton signed that because I didn't know why he did, but I found out years later. He signed it because Newt Gingrich said he would put through Hillary care through the House.
He didn't sign it.
And he didn't do it.
He didn't. He pushed it through because he's a corporate Democrat. And I love Bill Clinton. I like him a lot. Hey, I sing the national anthem.
I like Bill Clinton too,
but I'm just saying he's a corporate Democrat. And he pushed a corporate line, and this is what we've got. But stay right there because we can talk a little bit on the other side.
You're right about that.
No, but I know what we fought. But before Newt Gingrich, because he came in '92, he was elected in '92 and '93, and he ran on an anti-populist message within the Democratic Party because the person he was supposed to be facing in 1992 was Jesse Jackson, who was the presumptive front runner. Reverend Jackson decided not to run, which gave Bill Clinton the runway to run and become president. And he ran on a corporatist Democrat DLC agenda, and this is what we've got. And they're even trying to dial back on that. I mean, I hear you, but I'm just saying that it's not worked for us. But stay right there because I want to hear more from you, Paul from Seattle. Paul, I got about a minute for you. Make your comment, sweetie.
Sure. Thank you, Santita. You mentioned about corporate welfare. There really is corporate welfare because you mentioned something about the benefits that we give to Lockheed Martin and so on. Actually, military contracts are, in fact, entitlements. And they were defined that way under a Supreme Court case in 1970 called Goldberg versus Kelly. It was about welfare and entitlements. An entitlement is something that is a benefit, a program to which the recipient does not pay into directly, but is entitled to the benefit through the criteria of the application process. And that's what military contracts are. You contract with the government. You apply with the bid to produce military material for the United States government. You can't sell that product on any other market. It's an entitlement, just like SNAP and all this other stuff. And yet, what was that 60-minute special that talks about half of our military budget is essentially entitlements. They are entitlements for military contractors. And so we talk about, we have this sick corruption of the Christian ethic by the right wing. They're really pushing a neo-Calvinistic ethic. It has nothing to do with morality. It's a moralizing, but it has nothing to do with morality. That you have to people who cannot afford to they're working full time and still can't afford to eat is immoral. That's immoral. And as when the minimum wage was passed, Justice Hughes, who wrote the opinion, said there is no liberty in having to work for what is less than needful. And now we have a minimum wage, yet it is now less than needful. And we are letting corporations get away with sending their employees to the welfare lines, to the SNAP lines, so that they don't have to pay a wage that is a living wage so that people can eat. That's immoral. That's immoral. That's not a Christian ethic.
I hear you. It's immoral. I mean, I don't know any great religion that signs on to that. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and the Santita Jackson Friends page. We'll get closing comments from this brilliant panel. And Arlene, I hear you. You said, well said, caller. The two parties are definitely not the same. At least in principle, they're not supposed to be the same. But in practice, they are, Arlene. And that's unfortunate. And as a progressive Democrat, as an independent Democrat, I'm going to continue to push the party. When Reverend Jackson ran for president in 1984, the DLC was formed, and the DLC specifically in their opening document said that they were being formed to undercut, to counteract the 2.5 million voters brought in by Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition. They said that if the party were to be moved in the populist leftist direction, they were going to leave the party and become Republicans. Blue Dogs, Al Gore, Bill Clinton, Sam Nunn, Chuck Robb. That's just, and the party's gone there. We're the ones who have to stop it. And I'm not going to give them any space on that because I saw them do it. I'm not going to give them space on it. Democrats need to be like Democrats. And they need to fight for us. And we need to push them to make them do it because that's the way politics works. I love you, everybody. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow. But stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel so we can hear some closing thoughts from this tremendous panel. Thank you, Alex, for a great show. God bless you, everybody. Have a great day. And this is as I see Joe Manchin, Reverend Dr. Hatch, and Alderman Will Hall and Attorney Terry O'Neill. I hear he's saying he's not ruling anything out. He's thinking of a third-party presidential run. Now, this is someone who ran as a Democrat because he would lose as a Republican in West Virginia. He throws our party into chaos, and he throws our votes into chaos all the time. And now he's talking about running as a third party. In a third party? I mean, are you serious? Somebody help me with this. Anyone who wants to take a piece of that, let me know. Because I'm not willing to give the Democrats who do this, and that's what these blue dog Democrats do. I'm not willing to give them space. They try to move the party, and they have been successful in moving the party in a corporatist, right-wing direction, and we have all suffered for it. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm just a Democrat. No. I am a Democrat. But they must be Democratic. If you're going to be Democratic, then you need to open up the debate so I can hear everybody who's running debate. That's what I want to hear. Talk to me.
Yeah.
And treat me with some respect. Yes?
You gave us the history of the DLC, which produced Clinton and his triangulation. And I think the Democrats paid an awful price in 2016. Because the fact is, nobody forgot that's what the Clintons stood for. Particularly the three strikes you're out.
It haunted her. Did it not come back to bite her in 2008?
Didn't it though? And 16 as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 16 yeah. So I mean that actually is the history of that. I think earlier in the week, the point was made on the show that, the Democrats have failed to expand the electorate on the left of center. And a lot of that has to do with the triangulation with the way that the conservative Democrats have basically taken over the national party and refused to allow any truly progressive candidate to emerge with the nomination.
Or to run. Look at what they did to Bernie in 2000. Look at what they did to Bernie in the last. I mean, no one had more enthusiasm. In fact, Trump supporters they toggle between Bernie and Trump. Bernie and Trump.
Absolutely.
That would have been the choice. And I promise you, I think Bernie would have won.
Yeah, because Trump really ran as a populist, not necessarily as a conservative, which is why Bernie voters went from Bernie to Trump.
That's it.
You know, somebody that's put up because it's rigged. You know, I was looking 2012. My point was that the Tea Party and the Occupy Wall Street movement were flip sides of the same coin, meaning that the people know that somebody screwed us down here. You know, you mentioned NAFTA and all of that. I mean, the people know that both parties have sold out the people. And so they've been looking for somebody to blow it up.
And that is that is Trump's appeal, Reverend, and Alderman Hall and Attorney O'Neill. I mean, some people I know some people who, because I have not been hostile, I've just held my fire, held my powder. They will come to me and say very quietly, you know, I voted for Trump and I actually support him. That's what they will tell me, because they know that I'm not hostile. I'm not going to lose a friendship over that. I'm just not going to do that. So I'm like, okay, well, tell me, what did you like about him? And that's something that my brother Jonathan is great at, which is why he is great it's great to have him in Congress at this time. And Alderman Hall, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
You know, it's just reaching, you know this from working with Reverend. You know, people, and you know this, both of you know this from working with Reverend, as does Attorney O'Neill. Reverend has friends, or certainly he has people with whom he relates very respectfully, who are everywhere. First of all, they meet him and they actually like him, and they feel that he is trustworthy, and he is. Okay? And that keeps the door open so you can begin to relate to people. That's why I had to ask Congressman Jackson, well, wait a minute, what are you seeing on the Hill? Is anybody reasonable there? Because if you look at the corporate media, you would think that that's not so. He said, yeah, they are, but when they get back to their office, they are facing an onslaught. Because you know what, Alderman Hall, and you know this is true, and you know this is true, Attorney O'Neill, and you know this is true, Reverend Dr. Hatch. These folks have people who for a living sit by the phone and sit by their computers. They send email and they make phone calls. And they keep their radios and their televisions locked on certain channels to boost their ratings, and so they can respond immediately, so they can shape the conversation. That is what they do. Some people understand the system and they have gamed it. Elizabeth Warren told you that the system is rigged. It is true. But some people understand the system and they work it. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, you know this, Pastor Hall, and you know this, Pastor Marshall Elijah Hatch. She said it works when you work it. Is that not what she said? Didn't she say that? Okay. Yeah. Does it not work when you work it? Y'all, can I get a witness? Anybody still there?
Amen. And funded by the far right, that whole machine,
all of it,
that whole up part of the radio here at Chicago, when you go down the dial and you listen to the shows that tout themselves being top rated, because that whole rigging of the rating system is funded, the Koch brothers and others from the far right, to create the illusion of populism. And that's what you're up against. And it's what makes DeSantis more dangerous than Trump. He's much more of an ideologue with a Yale and Harvard pedigree, you see, which you would never believe about how ridiculous some of the policies are.
Yeah, I would, because remember, Harvard upheld, I mean, this is still holding bones of black folks. Now, Harvard has never been a progressive institution. It's the status quo institution. We didn't get our freedom from there. We got that from Morehouse and North Carolina A&T and Fisk.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Du Bois went to Harvard after he finished Fisk.
That's the new paradigm, by the way.
Oh, you know, I'm just saying William and Mary, all of them. But, I'm like, no, I can't look to them because they didn't help me get free at all. That's not what they do.
No.
They have never sent anything to us that has freed us, that has helped us. Nothing. Never. No. Now, I know you're a Harvard man. I'm not mad at you.
Well, that too, yeah. At Georgetown, that was rescued by the sale of 78 slaves,
I ain't mad at you. He's got the pedigree too, so we love Reverend Hatch. I had to tweak you a bit. Come on now.
Miss Jackson, I sent you a text.
Chicago State, so I'm claiming that now. It's my
No, you a Georgetown Harvard man. I ain't mad at you. Georgetown and Harvard. Yeah, you are. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let me bring up Tommy really quickly, because Alderman Hall, I want you to speak to this before we go, and Attorney O'Neill. But Tommy, what's on your mind, sweetie? I'm sorry. Tommy? Is Tommy there? I think you are. Tommy?
Yes, Santita.
Okay, what's on your mind, Tommy?
I didn't think you were still on, Santita.
I'm here. Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube, and so talk to me.
Oh, I didn't know that the call carried over.
Absolutely.
Well, what's on my mind is that we only have two parties in this country, and if we're going to have a third party, then we have to work to get them congressional support and the whole infrastructure of during an election. Then just showing up every 4 years, during a presidential election is only going to siphon votes away from the Democratic candidate. If they're on our side that like the Green Party or something like that, they're just a spoiler because they have no chance of getting elected because there's no infrastructure there for them. So they're just going to peel off a few votes here and there, and in swing states, we can't afford that.
But you know what, Tommy? Stay with me for a hot second. I think that if we continue to say that they won't win, if we continue to say that there's no space for them, there will never be space for them. And there will be never space for our voices and a more nuanced approach to our politics. I think that.
But Santita, we are teetering on the edge of fascism. We are teetering on the edge of fascism.
And what's fascist is when you block voices. Okay, so when we say that when we push candidates to the side, because that's what fascism does. It shuts down voices and that you have corporate control of what should be public institutions.
But we don't have
and we have that right now.
We don't have a. We're headed that way. We're not there yet.
No. If you look at
it, just takes the wrong person getting into.
No, if you have corporate media, I mean, this is what they're doing. You can't hear, and you cannot hear.
We do have corporate media, but
you can't hear a pro-peace voice, Tommy.
The quality of the character of the people that are running.
No, but I'm just saying to you.
That is very, very, very scary.
No, I'm not scared of him, and don't be scared. Let nothing have power over you but God, if that is your belief system. Don't be scared. I'm not scared of him at all.
They say that.
No, I'm not scared. I'm not going to be scared.
They say that it can't happen here.
No, it can't.
It can happen here.
Let me tell you, you know what happened here already? The genocide of indigenous people. You know what happened here already?
Absolutely.
No.
I have two brothers that are Native American.
No, listen, I'm a black person, and I've been here 400 plus years. So the most horrible, heinous things that have happened to people, the Nazis looked and studied American slavery so they could do to Jews what they did to them. The most horrific things that have happened to people. Who puts smallpox in a blanket and gives it to a people? Who kills off the buffalo? No.
I totally understand that.
We don't need to. I'm just saying, hold on, work with me, Tommy. We don't need to go to Europe to see that which is heinous and awful. It happened here already.
No. I do know that, but I'm saying that it's the most recent example.
No. I mean, the most recent example, the reason Rosa Parks became famous. Hold, because I want you to finish, but I need to give you this. Rosa Parks became famous because she would investigate the rapes of black women, because post-slavery life was no picnic for black people. Black women were routinely raped by white men. Oftentimes it was gang rapes. And they were and these rapes were never prosecuted because a black woman's never had a virtue that's been protected in America. So, I mean, I just have to step back. Right. Now, I have to step back and say, wait a minute, when we start talking about, and Terry is my witness, when we start talking about oh, the most horrible things that have happened, I'm not going to continue to look at Europe and give America a pass. We've still not done right.
I'm certainly not giving America a pass either.
I know you're not.
I'm not.
I know you're not.
I'm saying that it's because I am a member of the LGBT community, and we were the first ones that they put into the concentration camp. And,
over in Europe?
It was, in Europe, we were the first one, but we've always been persecuted. And it certainly can happen here with the number of anti-trans bills that are going through, and they're making us the other.
And all I'm saying to you, Tommy, is that we need to stop saying it has happened here. I'm just saying change the phrasing. And it should not happen anymore or again. That's all I'm saying. Because when you speak to an African American,
I'm totally in agreement with you there.
I know you are.
I'm totally in agreement with you there.
Because Tommy, I'm saying to you,
one party that does believe in. There's one party that does believe in democracy, and there's one party that's done with democracy.
No, you can't tell me
that's why they gerrymandered all the congressional districts in their states that they control
Democrats
all three
do that too, Tommy.
branches of the state.
Democrats
No, they do not. They have not.
Democrats cannot tell me.
They have not.
Yes, they have. Because I know the Democrats who gerrymandered their own districts so that they could favor them. I get it. I'm just against gerrymandering. And I also have a problem
I am too. But
I'm just saying, just speak against gerrymandering, whoever does it, right? Can we agree on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But the states that the Democrats had gerrymandered, they turned them over to committees that would redraw the map, and they did. Republicans never did that.
You know what I'm saying?
They like the gerrymandered.
But we do too. I mean, I'm just saying to you, I've seen enough, Tommy. I'm just trying to engage you, and I'd like to have the other panelists jump in and while you stay here.
I'm also trying to engage you, and I so appreciate you doing this after your show. I'm blown away. I was shocked. I thought, is this an echo? Is this a repeat? What's going on?
No.
I'm so thrilled.
Sweetie, I like to talk to people, and I don't want you to think I'm rolling over you, because I'm not. What I try to do, though, I just try to share my lived experience with you. And so I've seen...
I appreciate that, and you have been closer to the fire than any of us.
Well, no. The thing is, we have
you got to witness it firsthand, and
yeah, okay. Yes. And so when I
appreciate you for that, I do.
And because Reverend is the first top tier candidate to give the LGBTQ plus community a desk. Prior to his candidacy, the LGBTQ plus community and women and Arabs were never acknowledged. He's the first one to do that. He's the first one to mention them in his platform. He's the first one to vote to fight for that community. The first. So I'm simply saying to you, I know the forces that came after us when we were doing all of that. Stay right there, Tommy. I mean, you were there, okay. Attorney Terry O'Neill. Stay right there, Tommy, because I want to talk to you for a few more minutes, but I know we all have to go. Attorney Terry O'Neill, are you still there? Okay, Alderman Hall, you there? Okay, well then, Reverend Hatch, are you still there?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm listening to you.
No, I'm just trying to speak to Tommy and just share with him that, I think we'll have to make a decision, Tommy, about being fair. And I see two other people at least prominently running for the Democratic nomination. And it is almost forbidden for us to mention them by name. I mean, I'm going to have Robert Kennedy on the show, and I'm going to have Marianne Williamson, and I'm going to have Cornel West, who's not running in the Democratic Party. I think it's an awful thing for Democrats and Republicans to say that they're not going to have debates. I think it's awful. That's not democratic, and it does not support and it doesn't support the Republic. Okay.
I met Robert Kennedy at Harvard in '99, and then he was a very dedicated environmental attorney who fought for communities, particularly, again, black and poor communities, environmental racism, which was his passion at that time.
And it still is.
And
it still is. And for them to make him for them to just make him an anti-vaxxer, he's not anti-vaccines. He's anti-unsafe vaccines and medicines. The vaccines still have not met FDA approval. They haven't. It's still an experiment. I'm not mad at experiments, please. My weight loss surgery is technically an experimental surgery, so I'm part of a study myself. I get it. But the fact that I can't hear from Marianne Williamson, the fact that I've seen Robert Kennedy censored. I've seen number one, you can't get him mentioned, but then I've seen ABC give an interview in which they gave us all these caveats before they even asked him a question. Or they did that in post-production. It's just not, tell me it's just not right. And so I'm going to hold everybody's feet to the fire. Everybody. I'm against gerrymandering, period.
It's today the anniversary of this aspect.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Wow.
We can say it on the radio, but they're still putting it through in practice, Santita.
I'm sorry, what you saying?
The gerrymandering. And
yeah. I'm just saying, whoever gerrymanders, I think it's wrong, okay? And I think that whoever is unfair.
It is wrong. It is wrong.
And I'm saying, I'm not going to give, I've seen Democrats run people who had a real shot at the nomination for the presidency. And people who because I raised in Chicago, Tommy. The people we had to fight was the Democratic machine. The Democratic machine ran Dr. King out of Chicago. Reverend and Bill Singer, an alderman, white alderman here in Chicago, white Jewish alderman, progressive. They were the ones who unseated Richard Daley, Mayor Daley, and the Chicago machine at the Miami Democratic Convention in 1972. We've always had to fight the Democratic machine, and we still have to fight the Democratic machine, even though now it is black. Because they hold up corporatism. And that's not what I am. And I'm not saying there's no space for corporations. I just don't think corporations should rule our lives. I
totally agree with that.
We should rule them. They need my money.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but I think that Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, well, there's a great example of how the parties are not the same. That's a great example of how the parties are not the same.
Joe Manchin is still a Democrat. Yeah. But hold on.
He's in a real pickle. I have to tell you, though. West Virginia politics. The only reason why he is a senator, of course, he's much more corporatist than Robert Byrd was. But the only reason why he's a senator is because of the legacy of Byrd, who is somebody who is a very interesting guy. If I was going to write a book about a guy, if I would take the time to research who I thought, came, a Klansman and so on. But just to show you the interesting bends of politics. He loved poor white people much too much to ever become a Republican. And it's the only way that Manchin ever became a senator, because there shouldn't be a Democratic senator from West Virginia at all. But only the legacy of Robert Byrd, who was, a self-taught, constitutional expert who voted against the Iraq War resolution just as a matter of principle, who was a virulent racist, when he entered politics. But a very interesting study on the guy who loved poor white people so much that he could never become a national Republican.
Wait a minute. In
this
particular iteration of Republicans, because the fact is he was a Dixiecrat. You know,
the way it became.
And Dixiecrats were what MAGA Republicans are now. They, I mean, we had to fight them. It was the Republicans who carried the banner on abolition. So, I mean, this stuff goes back and forth. It's really, that's why I keep saying we got to go to the principle, not to the people. No, I'm not, because I've seen the Democrats fight Bernie Sanders and progressive people. Bernie Sanders, who had all the energy for years in 2020, he had all the energy. Reverend Jackson had all the energy in '84 and certainly in '88. But the people who have the energy and who register the voters, the Democratic Party does not want them. They do not want them. They don't. They want your vote, but they do not want your politics. And that, my friend Tommy, we have to change. And I'm going to continue to push until that happens.
Me too.
Yeah,
but I really...
I'm sorry, Tommy, what were you saying, sweetie?
I was just saying that I also am, you know, for the de-gerrymandering of our districts, because that takes the power away from the people. Yes. It takes the power away from our vote, and it solidifies them into power. And in these states like Tennessee, or where they've gotten super majorities, where they can override any, or even Wisconsin. But they have a super majority in Wisconsin, and the majority of the people don't vote Republican in Wisconsin. But they've maneuvered themselves into a position of power, and to where they're so safe because their districts are shaped like a porcupine. That
sorry, I'm not laughing at you.
They've solidified themselves into power, no matter what the people want, and that is just wrong. And you know, is it Michigan that they just changed their Supreme Court, and now it's Republican controlled after they told them to.
Oh, that's
was it Wisconsin? They told them to redo their maps. We told them to redo their maps, and then they turned around and got a Republican Supreme Court, and they're like, nope, we're fine with it now.
Okay, I hear something in the background. Okay, just make sure you turn that down. But you know, I'm just saying.
On my side.
Well, no, it's okay, honey. It's all right. I was just letting whoever know that that's what
I'm
we're
just saying that I don't have any. There's nothing,
Okay.
no appliances or anything on my side.
No, I gotcha.
Okay.
You know, but I'm just saying, you know, wherever we see that which is unjust, and gerrymandering is unjust, we need to fight it.
Absolutely.
I'm not willing to give the Democrats a pass on that because they do that too. The fact is, you know, we have power protects itself, and you have to be careful with power because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. One of the things that I learned from Reverend Jackson is that you got to be careful when God gives you responsibility and gives you power. You should be careful not to use it, because if you use it, you could abuse it, and if you abuse it, you will lose it. So we have to be very, very careful, and we have to call out this malfeasance wherever we see it, And I think that
well, I have a sister that is Republican, and I told her, I said, tell me one bill that was offered by Republicans and put through both houses and supported by Republicans in both houses that solely went to benefit the middle class or lower income Americans, people that draw a paycheck every 2 weeks. She hung up on me because she couldn't come up with one thing, not one thing. And then she came back and she said, Medicare Part D. I said, you mean the bill that Tom DeLay kept open on the House for 4.5 hours? It's supposed to be a 15-minute vote? Well, he twisted arms and threatened chairmanships and of his own party, because what was written into the bill was that Medicare could not negotiate through its bulk buying power of, to get the prices down, that they were going to pay full freight on every single pill.
Well, the big joke is
you don't get that one.
ACA is a Republican idea. It comes from the Heritage Foundation in the 80s, okay?
Yeah,
and so Romney
put it in Massachusetts.
And he was an independent then, because his father left the Republican Party because the Republican Party would not meaningfully support civil rights in the 60s. See, that's what, when we look at this, we have to look at the whole thing. That's why Republicans have been mistrustful of Mitt Romney, because their politics have been, he's more like a Senator Chuck Percy Republican, who I supported over Paul Simon any and every day. Any and every day. Even when I had disagreements with him domestically, I do appreciate the fact that he did bring the only black senator at the time, Ed Brooke, and you might not remember this, Reverend Dr. Hatch, you might have been away at school, but he was trying to save busing. He was, of course, the senator from Massachusetts, one of the two senators from Massachusetts. And he put his whole career on the line because he said, we've got to fight for busing because busing is a fulfillment of the promise of Brown v. versus the Board of Education. We've got to get, our children need to be in the best schools. We've got to even this thing up. And you know who did not support him? A Democrat from the great slave state of Delaware, Joe Biden, who was a freshman senator, who he had depended upon for support, who withdrew his support and aligned himself with Southern Democrats, who opposed busing. So let me tell you something. I look at all these folks and go, I just want to know where you stand and what you're doing. That's all I want to know. And I don't need to look to Europe or some other part of the world for that which is heinous that has happened, because it happened here. Here. See, Americans want to look past.
I understand and I get that.
Oh, I know you do. And I'm just saying Americans want to look past. They want to look past what happened here. And we can't look past what happened here. And until we make things right with those who it happened to here, we're not going to get over there. You feel me, Tommy?
Right. And I do feel you. But I do know that they're not two sides of the same coin, though, because almost everything that Biden has put or pushed through or tried to do, or the amount of amazing stuff that he's actually gotten through both houses and signed into law with zero help from Republicans, and they were against every bit of it, but they sure are there for the ribbon cutting birthday.
Well, but I'm just saying it's not. I just think, with all due respect, it's not as simple as a Democratic Republican thing, because that's not what this is. But
we only get the choice of the two.
No, but we only get the choice of the two. We only get the choice of the two because that is what we tolerate. And I'm saying to you, the British system to me makes more sense. It's more mature. Because you have space for different parties. Because people
agree with that.
People have different points of view, and I'm saying to you,
I think that they also should merge the House of Congress and make it a parliament.
And I'm not going to continue to say
they should. I think they should merge the House and the Senate and make it one House.
Well,
because
first of all, you do know
through the House. You do know the Senate.
You do know the House of Representatives should have many more people. That was written in the Constitution too.
Oh yes.
So I'm just saying to you, before you even go there, why don't you let the numbers truly reflect where we are? You're supposed to have thousands of people in the House of Representatives.
In there now.
You would have thousands.
It would be double the size.
You'd have thousands.
It would be easily double.
It would be more than double because we more than doubled our population since 1789.
But at the same time, you still have states like Wyoming and Montana that have 50 people in each one of them, and they get 2 senators apiece.
And that's wrong. It's just wrong.
But then we have Puerto Rico and Washington D.C. that have no senators at all,
and that's wrong. And I'm saying there's a lot
And
of
that's
cleaning
wrong.
up. And I'm saying there's a lot of cleaning up we have to do. And when Reverend was a shadow senator, when Reverend Jackson was a shadow senator from Washington, D.C., because one of the polls of his 84 and 88 campaign was D.C. statehood. And he became the representative of the U.S. Senate for D.C. statehood. Some of our biggest opponents have been Democrats. So I'm simply saying to you, okay, when we talk about Medicare for all and a universal single payer program, some of our biggest foes have been Democrats. So I'm just trying to find out where does everybody stand. I'm not giving anybody space on that. I'm unwilling to do that.
I appreciate that.
I just want what is right.
That.
When you talk about the LGBTQ community, Reverend Rand is a Democrat, and no Democrats would stand with him on your rights. Nobody would. Reverend did. Reverend was alone. No one would stand for putting a woman on the ticket. That was Reverend's idea. Mondale, who ended up putting a woman on the ticket so he wouldn't have to put Jesse Jackson on the ticket. That's what happened. So I'm saying to you, look, honey, I'm done with all of that. I'm not done with them. I'm done with that. I don't play my politics that way. My thing is it's principle-based politics, and I'm going to work with whoever is in office so I can get what it is that I need. One thing that I know about white folks, they're never out because they work with Democrats and Republicans, and that is what I'm going to do. That is what I believe in. As a registered Democrat, that's what I am. I'm an independent Democrat, and I'm someone who wants to get some things done.
It was not Democrats that were fighting to take food away from poor Americans. It was Republicans that were.
I got you, but
and
you
they
know
were
what?
also fighting to keep those tax breaks for the millionaires and the billionaires that they put through. They're the ones that blew
You're right, and
the
you know
debt
what?
up in the first place.
And Tommy, and that's in this passive history. I'm just saying to you that can change with the wind also. At the end of the day, Congressman Jackson told you in the first 30 minutes of the 7 o'clock hour that I said, are there any reasonable Republicans you can talk to? He was like, oh yeah. And a lot of them agreed with us in principle. And they wanted to support us. And let me finish. Let me finish. They're not their own party. Let me finish. Let me tell you, they wouldn't stand up to their own voters or the people who are calling into their office. Because every phone call that you make represents X number of voters. Every email represents X number of voters. And these people know how to work the system. That's why I keep trying to tell you. We need to work the system as well.
Or they could be the most vocal. They could be the most vocal of the ones that have
but that's my point. We're saying
Capitol Hill on speed dial.
No, we're saying the same thing. That's what I said. I said that's how these people do this. They work the system. We have to do that too. But Democrats will stand in my way when I want to work the system and bend it in a populist direction. They do. And I have to fight them too, and I will.
Well, you know that when Republicans, they all pull the same direction. They get in line, and they don't.
No, they don't.
Now
we're getting in line, and they are scattered to the four winds. I get it. But bottom line, at the end of the day, 4 out of 5 people who get SNAP benefits are working full-time jobs, plural. Okay.
Right.
At the end of the day,
I was one of them.
Well, yeah, and
I was one of them. And this last month, I decided to let mine. I decided to let mine go. And there was nothing left at the end of this month. Nothing. Not anything left.
And that is a horrible thing. And that's why I'm saying to you, you need to get on the phone, or you need to go to your congressperson's office or your state representative's office and let them know what's going on with you. And you need to then next time bring some other people with you. That's all I'm asking you to do. I can't stay much longer, Tommy. But I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I appreciate this time with you, Santita. I feel so privileged as a toe. I've gotten a one-on-one with a major inside person of politics and things because you're so knowledgeable and you're so you've been inside, you've been in the dugout of a team. You've seen it from the inside out.
Well, and all I try to do, Tommy,
I'm blown away that I got this much time with you personally.
Well, look, it's the people's business. It shouldn't be. This is not an inside club. At least that's not how I treat it. All we've ever tried to do, all the Jacksons have ever tried to do, is follow Dr. King's example and go in and represent the people and come back out and tell the people what happened and what you need to do. That's why I share these things with you. That's why I say what I say about the Democrats. That's why I say what I say about the Republicans. I could not care less about two parties, two wings of a corporatist bird. What I need is for you. I don't think that you, I think there's a floor beneath which you should not fall, Tommy. I think that you should be respected. I don't need to know who your emotional attachment is to. That is not my business. I'm a grown person. Grown people don't discuss people's personal business. You're a grown man and you should live your life as you choose with grown people.
Right.
No,
I appreciate that. I do.
No, I mean, and that's just it. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. That's just, and that's it. And so I just want you to know that's where I am. That's where I'm coming from. Period.
Well, I think that there are certain principled people in the Democratic Party that are like Sheldon Whitehouse, like let's see, like Barbara Boxer was one of my favorite senators ever. But there's certain people that I absolutely have admired, and I don't think they were. I think they took donations from people, but I don't think they were, the corporatists that some others are, like Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema. They weren't sold to the highest bidder or Kristen Gillibrand. But I think that there were definitely people that I have admired, but I haven't seen one Republican that carries the same sort of principles or the same sort of if you're voting Republican and you're not a millionaire, a billionaire, or an international corporation, you're just a rube.
Well, all I'm saying to you is,
you're just there,
Tommy. It's more.
I mean,
Tommy,
how many of them would put Donald Trump back into the White House tomorrow?
Tommy, it's more complex than that. That's all I'm urging you. I'm urging you to expand. Just expand and just consider that it's much more complex than that. It's more than.
I do consider it more complex than that.
No, I'm simply saying to you.
But I can't think of one Republican that I would say is principled and is doing what's right
Tommy,
for them.
All I'm saying to you is that is at this particular turn of history. There was a time when Republicans fought to end slavery and Democrats fought to keep it in place. And I'm saying to you.
Right.
No, Tommy, wait a minute.
Look in 1960.
60 years ago, Mitt Romney's father walked away from the Republican Party because they would not historically be where they were and support black civil rights. I'm simply saying to you, It's much more complex than that. I have been in the room. You acknowledge that. And I'm simply saying to you, as this phone repairman, when I interned on the Hill when I was in college, he said this: "Ma'am, I've worked here for a long time." He said, "Young lady, and I just want you to know," he said, I'm just a working white man, but I want you to know that every white man ain't your enemy, and every black man ain't your friend. Every Democrat ain't your friend, and every Republican ain't your enemy. I'm in these rooms, and I hear the discussions. All I can do is give you what the man told me. And all I can do is give you the benefit of my.
I agree with that.
But you're interrupting me.
I agree with that.
It's like you're not even hearing me, Tommy. So I just need you to.
I'm certainly hearing you.
No, but I'm just saying, slow down a bit. Okay, just slow down. Just slow down a bit. That's all I'm saying. So just keep an open mind, because also we're living in a time in which everything is shifting around really fast. Donny Hathaway sang the song, "Hang, someday we'll all be free. Hang on to the world as it spins around. Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight, though. You will last. Keep your self-respect, your manly pride. Get yourself in gear. Keep your stride. Never mind your fears. Brighter days will soon be here. Take it from me. One day, we will all be free. Because we can't be free if you're not free. I can't be satisfied until you're satisfied. I didn't say completely happy, but satisfied. You should never be hungry. You should never be without decent housing. You should never be without the opportunity to actualize yourself. That's what I'm going to fight for. Reverend Hatch, why don't you say something and close us out? Because I am running very, very
Well,
late.
I do want to know, is there even one Republican that has that strength of option?
I'm just trying to say to you, yeah, there are some. Yeah, there are. There are. Yeah, there are. And there are some Democrats who think the opposite. And there are some Democrats who absolutely, who I can't have a conversation about peace in Ukraine. But there's some Republicans with whom I can. And I'm saying to you, my politics are more nuanced than that. And I respect the fact that, I hear you. But, I'm saying I don't do crowds well. I don't do that. I stick on principle. I don't stick with people. God is a God of principle, not of persons. God is not a respecter of persons. God respects principle, and that's where I am on that. Reverend Hatch, your closing thought? Oh, did he leave? Okay. Well, everybody, I'm going to run. Tommy, I love you to death, honey. I got to run. Tommy, that's it. Tommy.
I've had the best time.
Bless your heart.
The best time talking with you, and you're a amazing person, and the things that you've seen, the things that you've experienced, and I mean, I'm just in awe, and you bring it every day, and I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're one of the morning stars. How about that, Tommy? Where are you in California?
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Where are you, sweetie? Where are you living?
I'm in Desert Hot Springs, California.
Okay. Well, I want you to take care of yourself.
It's about 8 miles outside of Palm Springs, California.
Okay. Well, take care of yourself and get to know your representative. Go by that office. Okay.
I do know.
No, just really continue to do that, but know all of them, and they should know you. Okay.
Yes.
All right, sweetie.
And have a great day. And I was just turning around, still had my earbuds in, and I was just like, "What? What do you mean? What's you talking to me?"
Yes, I am, and I'm honored that you listen. I'm honored that you even feel that you give this show your time. Thank you for that.
Well, I think that we all need to hear each other's voices, and because it's we the people, and we're the ones that governed. So big government, that's us. It's never going to be any bigger than it has to be, and it's never going to be shrunk down to where the people can't get services, because then there's nefarious forces at work there. Well, because anybody that wants, we are the richest country the world has ever known.
Tommy,
ever known.
Tommy, I gotta go, sweetie. I keep trying.
We certainly should not have people with.
Tommy.
We certainly should not have
Tommy, you're right. But I gotta go. I keep trying to tell you that, sweetie. I gotta run. Okay.
Okay.
All right, baby.
Okay.
And now you keep in touch with me. Okay. I want to know how you're doing. I love you, sweetie.
Okay.
I love you, and I want you to be in touch with me. And let me know if you're not getting your benefits. You need to get some benefits because you got to get some food. Okay.
Okay.
Always check in with your churches.
Okay.
Check in with your churches. Okay.
I will.
All right. Check in with your church.
And talk to you soon. Okay.
Love you, sweetie.
You fighting a good fight.
You too, sweetheart. Love you all. Love you, sweetie. Susan, hey, from LA. Hey. Sending you much, 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 much love today. And I'm sending all of you love. I'm so glad that Tommy called in, and I'm so glad that you've been with us. I hope that you got something good out of the show today. And got a lot to talk about. I love everybody. See ya tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye.
Bye-bye.